debate. Tonight we're debating whether or not feminism is good or bad for society, and we are starting right now with Amanda's opening statement. Thanks for being with us. Amanda, the floor is all yours.
All right. Hello. Thank you, James. I am Amanda Norman. I will share my screen. And did anything happen? Looks like it did. Okay. So I'm Amanda Norman. I am a middle school teacher outside of Dallas. I am a theater, speech, and debate coach, and I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in creative writing, master's degree in education. And my assertion here is that feminism is not only better for society, it is wickedly better for society. So feminism, rather than treating feminism as a slogan or an insult, I'm going to approach it as an idea grounded in history, law, economics, and social science. My argument today is very simple. Feminism, defined correctly, is not only good for women, but better for society as a whole. So what feminism actually is, we have to define our terms here before we begin, or else we're not even going to be talking about the same thing, and we're going to spend the whole debate talking past each other, and it's not going to be a debate. So when I say feminism, this is what I mean. It is the belief in equal rights, opportunities, and dignity regardless of gender or sex. So for the purpose of this debate, I will refer to gender and sex interchangeably. This means equal access to education, employment, legal protection, and political participation. Feminism does not argue that men and women are identical in every respect. Instead, it asserts that difference should never justify inequality. Cognitive, social, and economic equality are the foundations of feminism. What it is not. Feminism is not anti-man. It does not claim that men are inherently oppressive or morally inferior. A lot of people do believe that that is true. That is not. A person who believes that is not a feminist. They are a misandrist, which is the opposite of a misogynist. So there is a word for that. Feminists acknowledge physical differences while rejecting the idea that those differences determine intelligence, leadership, or moral worth. Feminism, above all, and this is important, critiques systems. It does not critique people. It is systemic institutions, laws, and traditions. So biological differences versus equality. There are real biological differences between the sexes, particularly in physical strength and reproductive roles. I've heard this a lot, so I'm going to talk about it. However, decades of research, which I have cited, in psychology and neuroscience show no meaningful difference in general intelligent or problem-solving ability between the sexes. Janet Hyde's gender similarities hypothesis demonstrates that men and women are far more alike than different in cognitive functioning. Emotional differences, too, are largely shaped by culture, such as teaching boys to suppress their emotion and girls to express it. All right, now we have to look at the historical context before I get into my little prefabricated thing here. I want to talk about this image you are looking at. Before the whole retail war garbage, Black Friday referred to a Friday in November 18th, I believe, 1919, when women were basically mobbed, arrested, raped within an inch of their life for showing up at the polls in New York City trying to vote. And here we have an image of that on the front page of the newspaper. So historically, women were excluded from public life. We lacked voting rights, property ownership, education, and legal protection. These exclusions were not based on evidence of inferiority, but solely on tradition and power. Understanding this context explains why feminism emerged. It is not an attack on men, but is a response to systemic injustice. So political inequity. So this, I like to call this image on the right, the mother of all memes. So it is kind of hard to read, but what it basically says is it doesn't unsex her to do this. And then it shows a woman cleaning the floors. This one's covered up. Let me see what that one is again. So a nurse coming out of the factory. I think she's folding laundry over there. She's waiting tables. But this casting a ballot is, for some reason, another story. Political inequality is one of the clearest examples, especially in the United States. Women gained the right to vote only in 1920, But a lot of people don't know is that we were actually kind of forerunners for this. In the UK, full voting equality didn't happen until 1928, and Switzerland did not allow women to vote federally until 1971. These dates reveal how recently women were excluded from democracy itself. 1971, my mom was 11 years old. So that's how recent it was. All right, legal inequality. So this is a real ad from a real Thai company that says, show her it's a man's world. It has a woman kneeling before her husband in bed who for some reason is dressed in a tie eating breakfast in bed. So I I love that picture. It makes me laugh. So under English common law, which our law is based on, married women had no separate legal identity. This doctrine is known as coverture, and it meant women could not sign contracts, own property, or control wages. William Blackstone explicitly described women as legally subsumed by their husbands. Feminism challenged these laws and demanded legal personhood. Economic inequality. Economic inequality followed legal inequality. Women were barred from professions such as law and medicine and denied higher education for hundreds of years. Even in the 20th century, US women could not obtain credit cards without a male cosigner until 1974. This economic dependence trapped many women in abusive marriages or exploitative situations, including but not limited to human trafficking. Violence and safety, good segue. So on this image, you can see the countries. Rachel, I'm sure this will stick out to you. The ones that are red have a certain something in common. But these are the countries where marital rape is criminalized versus marital rape is not. So violence and safety. Violence against women was often legally ignored. Marital rape was legal in many countries well late into the 20th century. In the US, the final state criminalized it in 1993. I was a year old. Domestic violence was treated as a private family matter rather than a crime, so it was not often reported. Feminism brought these issues into public and legal consciousness. So how women overcame the inequality, this here is just a little chart explaining the different titles we're going to talk about. They get confusing. But women organized to challenge inequality, and we saw the result of that in a further slide often. The suffrage movement, access to higher education and legal reforms like Title VII, Title IX, and the Violence Against Women Act dramatically reshaped society. These reforms did not grant women special privileges, they granted equal protection under law. So we've talked a lot about women, now let's talk about men. Feminism benefits society as a whole, including men. When women participate fully in society, everyone in the society benefits. Countries with higher gender equality experience stronger economic growth. Forcing the women into the workplace was good for the economy. Better public health outcomes and more stable families. Educated women are more likely to educate their children, reducing poverty across generations. Specifically, let's talk about men. Men also benefit from feminism. Feminism challenges rigid gender norms that pressure men to suppress their emotion, avoid caregiving, and define worth solely through income and brute strength. Shared parenting improves child development and relationship satisfaction. Feminism allows men to be whole people, not just stereotypical breadwinners, caring for the trophy wives. So, misunderstandings of anti feminists. I do not really like to speak for other people, but things I have noticed amongst people who declare themselves to be anti feminists are reacting to misinformation. Feminism is often portrayed as man hating or extreme, which we have established is actually misandry, not feminism, when in reality it advocates for fairness, evidence based policy, and human dignity. Rejecting feminism often means unknowingly rejecting equal opportunity itself. So let's go ahead and look at some global inequality. Globally, inequality persists. Women face higher poverty rates, often because of men impregnating women and just running away. That is a factor. Limited education access in certain countries, those ones that were highlighted in red earlier, yeah, in those countries, and gender-based violence worldwide, again, mostly in those red countries. Feminism remains necessary not because women want more than men, but because equality has not yet been achieved globally. So here's our core question. The core question is this: should gender limit dignity and opportunity? If your answer is no, then you support the foundational principle of feminism, regardless of whether you embrace the label. So let's conclude. Feminism is equality. It was historically necessary, remains globally relevant, and benefits all of society. It's not radical, it's reasonable. A society that values fairness, evidence, and human dignity must support feminism as it supports equality. And in fact, I think if we changed this entire debate to whether equality is better or worse than for society, there would be no debate. So here are my sources. Yeah, so there you go. You can look into those. But I wanted to avoid bare assertions, so I decided to do a slide that cites. So I will stop share. And with that, I yield my time.
Thank you very much for that opening. And folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. We are a fully neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as we have many more upcoming debates. With that, we're going to kick it over to Rachel's opening. Thank you very much for being with us, Rachel. The floor is all yours.
Thanks, James. It's good to be back on Modern Day Debate. So I do appreciate Amanda coming with a well thought out presentation, and she clearly has actually stopped to think about these things, which is more than I can say for a lot of my opponents on this subject usually. So I do appreciate that. However, everything that was in those slides are things I have seen and heard before. They are the very things that made me feel like I needed to write a book and several other pieces in order to kind of refute, because feminism, the whole idea behind feminism, relies on framing. I say this all the time because they'll say things like fairness, equality, opportunity, dignity. However, these are things that are core tenets of liberalism as a whole. The revolutionary ethos of the French and American revolutions was liberty, equality, fraternity, right? So feminism came as a political movement from this, with Mary Wollstonecraft and her vindication of the rights of women, talking about this very thing. It was basically everything Amanda just said, which is, you need to be fair and give us equality. But when we dig into what that means, it relies on a bunch of presuppositions that I do not accept. For instance, you said that feminism does not deny biology. How do you feel about the transgender movement? Do you support that in general, or are you against that? Or, in other words, are you a trans exclusionary feminist, or are you a trans inclusive feminist?
Are you asking?
Yeah, is it okay if
Oh,
I
okay.
ask questions in my opening, James, or
I'm
would you
cool with
rather?
that. If you want, that works for me.
Yeah.
As far as the trans question, I'm very conflicted about that. Um, we can look at historical context and see third and fourth, however many genders all throughout society. I feel like I'm just going to go ahead and say I do not support gender affirming care for minors. I'm an educator, so protecting children is very important to me. Trans women competing against biological women in sports is an absolute no for me. But at the end of the day, I kind of feel like if an adult biological male wants to live his life as a female and can pass that way, whatever fits. But I
Okay.
do feel like the way the trans movement is working is actually working against them, because I do see a lot of trans people saying, we want fairness, we want equality, we want you to listen to us, but they don't seem to understand the opposition and present it in a way the opposition will actually engage in.
Yeah,
So
right. So,
I have some serious criticisms of the trans movement as far as trans people in gender in general. That's I'm not
sure.
trans. I'm a straight woman, so it's not something I concern myself with on the
Okay.
daily.
Do you feel that homosexual individuals are born that way, or do you think it's conditioning or a lifestyle choice?
I do believe they are born that way. I'm what's called a determinist, meaning I believe free will is an illusion.
Okay, great. Because in your opening, one of the slides was talking about basically a reference to blank slate theory. You said that women only choose certain things and men only act certain ways because we condition them to do so. It's societal conditioning that makes men act like men and makes women act like women. Yet, when we talk about homosexuality, that they're just born that way. So clearly, you don't actually believe in blank slate theory, or do you? Like, which is it? Are you determinist that if you're born a woman, you're going to act like a woman and be like a woman, and that there's something essential biologically about femaleness? Or is that a costume that I can put on if I truly feel that on the inside I'm a man? Or I'm a
Um,
woman. I was born male, but I feel like I'm a woman on the inside.
Again, this is something that is incredibly complex. And when I say society, I have, I did, when I say society, I didn't use the word conditioned, but I'm talking about societal norms, people wanting to fit in, people having that shame instilled in them that, these 11, 12-year-old boys I teach, it's not okay to cry. You go to the bathroom and cry. You don't want to cry in front of your friends. You want to look tough. That's societally ingrained in them. Whereas, maybe their instinct is to be more emotional and seek help.
That kind of dances around my question, because you can't really have it both ways. You can't say homosexuals are born that way. I'm a biological determinist. I don't believe in free will,
I
but
didn't
then
say,
also say,
well, no,
yeah,
go
you
ahead.
did. And then say at the same time that boys would cry in front of everyone and they wouldn't act like boys, and except that we condition them to be that maleness or manliness wouldn't exist except for social conditioning, because
I
clearly.
didn't say that.
Okay,
I said that there's shame from society, certain societies, the one I live in kind of suburban Texas. Yeah, it emphasizes manliness, whether
sure.
that
Well,
person
here's the
truly
thing.
is manly or not.
We might be able to find common ground here. So when I'm sure you've probably heard trans activists say that we can tell that transgenderism has a biological root to it, that it's, something you're born this way, because when we do brain scans, we can see differences, right? If we look at a trans man's brain scan, it looks more like a woman's brain. The male to female transgender people, their brain scans, when we do them, look more female. Do you think that that science is probably valid?
I haven't looked into it. I don't talk about trans stuff a lot. I don't have very strong feelings about that.
Okay. Well, if we're going to talk about, feminism, I feel like you probably should look into that, because if we're going to be granting rights based on gender, then you believe in gender, and I don't believe in gender. I only believe in biological sex. So,
I said in my opening that I was going to use them interchangeably. So I didn't say that. I'm going to use them interchangeably. They're the same thing for the purposes of this debate.
okay. Well, I mean, this is very inconsistent. You're kind of trying to wiggle out of it, and I see why you are. Because if transgender brain scans are real, then also, I mean, you said there's no differences really biologically and cognitively between male brains and female brains. And it was actually an argument of first wave feminists that there aren't any differences between male and female brains. Yet the people who argue that a man can be born in the wrong body or a woman can be born in the wrong body are using brain scans as evidence that, yes, you can be born in the wrong body because their brain scans are different. So you might have to take that up with the transgender movement and figure out where you fall there, because you can't really say we're going to grant rights based on gender and then say, I don't really believe in gender. I'm a
No, I
biological
said we're not going to
determinist.
limit rights based on gender. Well, I actually didn't say that at all. We've jumped around from feminism to trans, and we went to homosexuality. Now we're back on
Well,
trans.
that's because from your view, if you're a biological determinist and you don't believe in free will, then how can the behaviors of men and women be based on social conditioning? How can we condition biological determinism out of people and socially condition their will if free will doesn't exist?
Okay,
I'm trying to gauge your
when
worldview
I
here.
say free will doesn't exist, I mean it's an illusion, meaning that maybe we're not. I mean, it's okay. So let me ask you something. So this may seem a little bit isolated, but if P entails Q and Q is determined, is P determined?
if that were the case, you could say that, but I don't believe in biological determinism whatsoever. So I'm not sure. You're saying if Q was an entailment of P and Q is biologically determined, that P would also have to be biologically determined?
Yeah, if Q is inside of P, yes.
Let's grant that. What would that mean for our argument here?
Okay, so I am arguing that feminism is better for society. I'm not
Yeah.
arguing about trans or anything.
Sure,
I've made
okay.
it very clear I'm not going to talk about that because it has nothing to do. I didn't prep for it. That's not what this debate is about. So can we
Right.
please just get back onto
Sure.
feminism?
Sure. Then if we want to talk about feminism, let's talk about the fact that when you brought up the map of women's rights and you noticed, you pointed out to me, Rachel, look at the red areas. I'm sure that you're noticing something about the red areas. And I did. The red areas are not Christian and they don't have a lot of technology. And if they do, they're more Muslim or more, Islam is not a system that I defend. It's a system I argue against. So I would argue that when you ended your slides there saying, the problem is that on a global scale, we haven't reached equality yet. You're talking about benefits to society that you think came from feminism, when mostly those benefits came from technology. So when you're talking about things like my GDP, my productivity, my first world living conditions, those are a result of the technological revolution, not
Mhm.
of social engineering.
Well,
And we can,
with that comes social engineering. With technology advancing comes new knowledge and new ways to view the world.
well, no,
I
what
mean,
it
50
does,
years ago, okay, go ahead.
that's not true. What it does, what the industrial revolution and the technological revolution did was create an illusion that men and women can be equal. There's a reason feminism did not come about until the industrial revolution, because there were not, if you watch, I know you were there, so if you saw my debate with Craig and he's talking about, well, we have tools now, we have tools so women can do all the man stuff because there's tools. It's like, yeah, buddy, that's exactly my point. Prior to technology and the industrial revolution, there was no such concept that women and men were equal, could do the same things, should do the same things. There was no desire for that. And if you want to argue that society is better with feminism, show me a benefit of feminism to society that is not reliant on technology, that isn't just a product of better technology.
I would
Like
say they go hand in hand.
yeah,
And I
we have better educational outcomes, but that's not due to feminism, that's due to technology. There's more people
Feminism
in.
arose because of the technology and the new worldview it provided.
It wasn't the worldview that did the improving of people's lives, it was the
Yes,
technology.
technology
Technology
improves.
increases education, technology increases medical care, it reduces infant mortality, reduces maternal mortality. There's one really good example where I can prove this. In the United States, we have rising maternal mortality for the first time since we
Mhm.
discovered germ theory. Do you know why that is?
Um, I looked into it but can't remember honestly. I think it had something to do with like I don't know.
It's a
Older
due
women. It's
Yes,
older women having babies. That's what
it's
it
due
was.
to advanced maternal age. So when
Yeah.
we discovered germ theory because of technology, we were able
Well, it was
to.
actually because of a lazy scientist, but yeah.
Sure. But it wasn't just the theory, it was developing technology that could reduce infections, that could help in hospital situations, that could things developing antibiotics and things like that that can fight infection, things that we can do prenatal care, prenatal screening. The technology helped reduce infant mortality and maternal mortality. And because we told women to spend all their fertile years in college and building a career, and they're waiting until their 30s and 40s to try to have babies, the risk of complications is way up and maternal mortality is rising in industrialized nations for the first time ever. So that's a good explanation. It's kind of a good picture of how technology improved things, not feminism, but feminism is actually taking us backwards by going against biology. You said it's not anti-biology, but I think that the precipitously dropping birth rates, which we talk about all the time, it's out there
Yeah.
now. People talk about it all the time. This is a very, very serious problem, and I'm wondering if you are a pro-choice advocate. Are you in favor of abortion rights?
Yes. And I would also to go back to your maternal death feminism thing. Um, a lot of older women who have babies have already had babies in their youth. And having more than one baby, especially after a C-section, makes pregnancy complicated.
It's
So
actually the
I
opposite. So that's
no, it's
completely
not. If you have a
that's completely
C-section and
wrong.
then you have a vaginal birth, you have a scar on your uterus and it could rupture.
That's actually also a myth. So let me correct a couple of things there because this is something I've done a lot of research on as well. I've had 5 kids myself. It used to be believed that C-sections increased risk for a VBAC after the C-section. They're now doing a ton of studies and have come up with a lot of things that contraindicate that. There are tons of women that go on to have healthy vaginal births after, but you always have the option to do a C-section. However, it's not me that says this. The CDC, I'm sure you follow the science. I'm sure you believe the CDC. The CDC says it is not multiple births. Women had far more children. They had far more babies, far more pregnancies 30, 50, 100 years ago than they do now. It is
And they often died in childbirth,
at a
way
far
more than they are now.
only due to infection. It is a complete and total lie and a complete and total myth
And hemorrhaging.
perpetrated by Margaret Sanger that multiple births is the thing that's the risk. It's not the thing that's obviously
No,
anything. Well, listen,
childbirth is the risk.
well,
So
there's
if you
always
go through
risks to
that more than one
childbirth,
time,
but that's not
yes.
what we're talking about is the fact that we cured most of that. We got rid of most of the risk of childbirth through technology, and it is feminism telling women, hey, you can wait until you're 45 to have a baby, and then they do that, and it usually is a first birth for them, by the way. So women who've had a birth in their 20s, and like I did, you have a couple in your 20s, a couple in your 30s, and you have one more in your 40s, the risk is very low. It's first births at an older age that are the highest risk. And it's not that people are having multiple babies. That's not why they're dying. They were having multiple babies. They were having more babies 30 years ago. They're dying at a higher rate now. So you've got it backwards. Do you understand that?
I don't think you're talking about the same thing I am. I was saying you can't blanket attribute high maternal mortality to this one issue.
I'm
That's
telling you that
not
the
the
CDC,
reason.
I can give you
Yeah,
the
give me
actual,
evidence.
the CDC says, it's in chapter 10 of my book, which you said is right there in Kindle. It should have a link if you've got the Kindle version. The CDC says that it is rising. It doesn't, I'm not saying it explains all maternal deaths, of course. I'm
Okay.
saying that for the first time in decades, since we've had the technology to mitigate most risks in childbirth, for the first time in decades, maternal mortality in the United States is rising, it's increasing,
Okay.
and that the reason for that, the number one reason, and pretty much the only reason, is due to advanced maternal age. Women are having babies older in larger numbers than they've ever had, and for most of those women, it is a first birth. The average woman's only having 1 or 2. So it's not that the women who've had 6 and are now having their 6th baby at 40, they're usually doing pretty well. It's when you have your first birth late in life that you're at the highest risk. And this is the reason that the mortality rate is rising. I'm not saying it's explanatory of every maternal death, of course not. There's other things that can go wrong. But those things have maintained pretty static throughout time. This is the one factor that has changed, and it's because of feminism. So we're supposed to be debating if feminism is better for society, and I asked you to give me some examples of things you think it has improved for society, and we're going to see if
You
any of
asked me
those
to give an
things.
example of anything that has something to do with technology, or
Yeah,
feminism has anything that doesn't rely on technology. And I said no, because you
right.
can't.
So all of the things you
Feminism itself
attribute,
thought itself could be seen as a technology in a way. Things evolve. And the reason, when I pointed to those countries, you say they're not Christian, we can go there, but that's fine. What the main issue there is that in those Islamic countries, Islam is a much younger religion than Christianity. It's
only about
1400 years old.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
only
but
about
listen,
500
Rachel,
years. Yeah.
500 years ago was 1525. Okay, that
Mhm.
was the birth of the Protestant Reformation. They were burning heretics at the stake. I don't think, I mean, you're Orthodox. I know you have feelings about Protestants and heretics. Would you shave their head and burn them?
Wait a
They
second.
still do that
Wait a
in
second. Wait a second. We have to go back. You said Islam started when?
like 1400 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
In
So,
around the fifth, 6th century, yeah. And then you
yeah.
jump to the Protestant Revolution, which was in the 1500s, 500 years ago.
Yes, and you're saying
What?
the difference between Christianity and Islam's age is 500 years, about.
So, yeah.
So I'm saying the reason Christianity is more reasonable is because it's older. It has had more time to evolve and adapt to the technology,
You should go
including
you should go to my
feminism.
Substack and read a piece that I presented at a theological seminary on how Christianity is what gave women dignity and made them human versus paganism, because
No, I read that in your book.
Christianity, well, I did a whole, like, it's an actual, you like this
Okay.
academic stuff, it's actually an academic cited work, um, which explains that it was Christianity that first gave women any notion of dignity, and not necessarily equality in the way that the post-enlightenment liberal folks would see it, but saw them as real human beings and not just temple prostitutes or breeding
Hmm.
mares or things like that. It made them human. Islam
Yeah.
is completely different, and it's not that Islam is younger, it's only 500 years younger, and Christianity up until 100, 200 years ago was not liberal whatsoever. There wasn't liberal Christianity until the Enlightenment Revolutionary period,
That's why I
when the
brought up the
Protestants,
age, though, to show you
yeah.
that that is a big difference. That's a lot of time
So you
for
think in
things to
400
change.
years that Muslims will be where we're at?
I don't know.
So then what's the point of this line of inquiry? I'd still like to hear where feminism has improved society in any way that isn't directly attributable to the technology and
I
not the
told you
social
I can't
engineering.
give you that. I
Okay,
told you they
well,
go hand in hand.
yeah, so what does that tell you? What does it tell you if women can't be equal with men without the technology? If we had an EMP or a cyber attack tomorrow and the grid went down, there's no electricity anymore, there's no water running, there's no electricity, are you still a feminist?
Yeah,
Really?
ideologically, yes. I'm not
Okay. You're
denying
not
that
going
I
to go
can't.
running to the first man that can keep you alive and say, "You know what? Whatever you say, sir.
No,
I'll do whatever you say." Oh, so you would just
no, I may
die. You would
partner up
die
with
out of
them.
ideological purity.
No, no. I
Okay,
would partner up with them and see if we could survive as a tribe, as a community, as
and what if they say,
whatever
"Look,
we have
Amanda,
nowadays without the tools, without
what
the
if they
tools.
the men say to you, "Look, Amanda, you don't know anything about plumbing. You don't know how to sterilize water. You can't build a barn. You
I
can't
can
help
build a
us get the."
fire and boil it.
Yeah, and if they say to you, "Amanda, just do what we say, we'll keep you alive. If not, you can go with the feminists and try to survive over there with them." Which one are you going to pick?
I might try to survive.
And you would die.
Possibly. But if an EMT
Almost
happened, a
certainly.
lot of people would die.
So, what I'm telling you is that as a biological determinist, you just said that you don't deny biology, you don't deny
No.
reality, and you don't
But
believe in free will. And what I'm telling you is women can't survive without men. So this idea that we're equal is just an illusion brought to you by technology. It's a
but
preference
Rachel,
you
no
have.
one's arguing that.
It's a preference you have that's propped up by the technology men have built and that they maintain on your behalf. And if men decide not to enforce women's rights tomorrow, you don't have any. So this is all
Because men are people and they have minds, and they're not something to be seen as an object or just something to be argued against. They're a real person that you can actually just talk to.
I
And
agree.
yes, and women are the same, and that's what feminism argues for. It argues for this idea of personhood, which you say Christians were the first ones or something
Yeah.
to give.
Yeah, we were,
Good.
but that does not eliminate hierarchy. Would you agree? Would you agree that
Yes.
just because men are people and women are people, you can reason with women, you can reason with men, we both have minds, we're both, in my view, we're equal in the eyes of God. Does that mean there's no hierarchy to society? That socially there has to be equality rather than hierarchy?
Not equality in the term that we are all the same, doing the same thing, doing the same jobs. Equality in the sense that we are people. We have this individual personhood of our own, and that
Okay.
men respect that.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
really all that feminism is. And you talk about framing. I don't know if you're, I've watched a few of your debates, the one with Craig, obviously. And that debate, I kind of felt like you were just talking past each other because you use this word framing. Can you define what you mean by framing? If by
Sure.
framing, do you mean it's the way we are presenting things, or do you mean is it the way things are? Because you keep going on about tools. And I don't know if you're saying men framed this by building the tools, or you're framing feminism to mean a certain thing.
No, when I refer to framing, I'm saying you are relying on people's presuppositions. So we have to,
Okay.
in order for feminism to make sense, especially the way you presented it in your opening, we have to agree on certain preconceived notions, like that women were enslaved or they were oppressed prior to women's liberation.
Well, I don't think we have to agree on that. We have to agree on some
Well, what
things.
were we liberating them from if they were, why would they need liberation if they weren't enslaved or oppressed?
The same reason the civil rights happened, because it wasn't, they were, I mean, yeah, I'll use the word oppressed, but that's not slavery. Like,
Okay.
oppression is not slavery.
Okay,
So
but you
when we talk about the right to vote, I'll use the right to vote for an example. It's not casting the ballot and putting in your vote for the representative. It's what that, I guess, represents. That's a lazy way to say it. But someone cares about my mind enough to take my opinion into account. That's what winning the right to vote meant. And I
okay,
don't know if you've ever read or seen A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. I am not saying that name right.
no.
Henrik Ibsen, A Doll's House. Okay, well, it's a really famous play. Nora from A Doll's House is like up there with Lady Macbeth as like the coveted pinnacle of female stage acting. And it's a really, really good example of a male writing a feminist work about a woman who's just unhappy in her marriage because her husband doesn't see her as a person. Um, he's a doll for her to play with. And a lot of women did have that life. So what Nora does in a play in A Doll's House is, this was like 1838, maybe, I don't know, 1878, maybe sometime around there. But Nora's father was dying. Nora was like the apple of her father's eye. So her father was dying and he had a lot of money. Her husband was very ill, so she forged his signature and got money,
You
forged
gotta
her
land the plane. You
father.
gotta land the plane because we're gonna bore the audience to death. So you're saying this poor woman just was in bad circumstances because it was 1830 and she had no choice about it. Is that the gist of it?
Well, she tried to take it into her own hands and it backfired. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
And
so let's just pretend we have a man and a woman, and it's the year 1830, and the woman is oppressed because men don't see her as a person. They just think of them as sex toys or birthing mares or something like that. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
um yeah, basically, so I can be a little long-winded, but
Me
basically
too.
at the end of the play, um she embodies this whole feminist notion of, I've lived my whole life being who other people want me to be. I don't even know who I am.
Okay,
Feminism gives women the
that's a
right to,
whole bunch of bullshit garbage, and I'll tell you why. Do you think that a
well,
man in I'll tell you why. In a man in 1830, do you think a man in 1830 just got to be who he wanted to be? He just got to find himself. He got to follow his true north. He got to, have this romantic idea of who he wanted to be in life and everyone respected it? Or do you think it's more likely that a man in
that he was sent to
1830,
be cannon fodder in war, put out on the farm. Yes, Rachel, women did the
yes, or
same
sent to the
thing.
mines? It's
Yes,
like
sent to the,
we're so
put on
this
the
is
farm labor, didn't get anything but a
yeah.
fifth grade
So this is
education.
what I mean by framing. What I mean by framing is we're always presented this picture of, but women weren't taken seriously and their feelings didn't matter and then they didn't have agency and they weren't seen as people and their personhood. And what about finding herself? And I'm telling you that that's garbage and that's bullshit. And you sound like a theater kid. Were you a theater kid? Yeah, you're a
Yeah.
theater kid. You like Wicked. You told me you like Wicked, and now you're talking about, yeah, you're a theater kid. So listen, that's not real life. In real life, people have to live and survive and eat and pay bills. And
Rachel, women paid that
men
blood
don't
price in
get
childbirth.
men don't get this romantic, beautiful life where they get to be who they want to be and do what they want to do and they sing a song about it. That's not how life works for anyone. That's not specific to women. And what feminism relies on is
And
framing.
feminism is is saying that, Rachel.
Feminism relies on framing history as this situation where men, as a whole, oppressed women and treated them like playthings and treated them like objects and didn't allow them personhood and didn't allow them this and didn't allow them that. And this is all based on standpoint theory. You should read about standpoint theory, Sandra Harding, look it up. That's where all your worldview comes from. It's this framing that.
Well, considering I've never heard of that person, that's an interesting claim to make, Rachel. But
if you've studied feminism, you should know this stuff. I probably am more well-read on feminism than you or any other feminist I've ever debated. That's why I'm here. I've done all the digging. I've done all the reading. I know their shit inside and out, and I know where this stuff comes from. And what I'm telling you is that.
And you're good at cherry picking it too.
I'm not cherry picking it. You're cherry picking it because your argument relies on this concept that women as a whole were oppressed by men as a whole, when historically that's completely inaccurate.
They were oppressed by society, by the societal norms.
Who in society? Were the women of society oppressing women, or was it the men? Okay, how were the women of society? How were the women of society oppressing each other?
The same way you do, Rachel, by going against feminism. And you talk about men going to work out on the farm, going to be cannon fodder, getting sent to the mines, paying the blood price. Women did that too, in childbirth, in marriage, when we died in childbirth, when we went against everything we wanted to do in marriage to hold the family together after our husband in the Dust Bowl with a bum knee went out, died of a heart attack of pure exhaustion. Then we got to take over and take care of the kids and send them again to go be cannon fodder in the war.
So you just did the meme. The husband goes out with a bum knee into the Dust Bowl and dies, women most affected. Okay, this is the framing I'm talking about. When all the men die in World War I, when France loses, I don't know how many of their men, 60%, 80% of their, percentage-wise, they lost a huge percentage of their male population. You're the kind of person who would be like, but what about how the women felt about that? And I'm saying, what about the men that died in huge numbers? And you're like, yeah, but the women were sad. So actually it's the women. So do you see how this is framed?
But I didn't say, but actually the women. That's the difference.
There are hardships to being a man. There are hardships to being a woman. They might be different hardships. So fucking what? Feminism relies on framing everything historically as a hardship for women, and this presumption. Yes, this presumption. So you brought up voting. First of all, nobody has a right to vote. That's bullshit. That's made up stuff. It's a social contract.
I will grant you that, yes.
And men, do you think all men could always vote?
Of course not, Rachel. I know about the civil rights movement.
So why is it special that women not vote, or that women gain the vote when most men couldn't vote until maybe 10 years before women could?
Rachel, I told you what the vote represented already, and
your feelings. This all reduces
your
for
mind.
You to but how I feel about it, and what about I'm sad because I feel like people don't take me seriously. It's like, well, men feel sad all the time. People feel sad all the time. But feminism doesn't fix that. Feminism doesn't fix it, and it doesn't cure it. And let's go back to some other stuff.
No, but it's better for society.
It's not better for society.
Why?
For example, why do you think it is that women couldn't own property or have their own bank accounts and credit cards?
Because they couldn't assume the debt, and therefore the debt fell on the husband.
Exactly. Do you think that that's unfair to women or unfair to men? Are you going to say it's unfair to both, so feminism solves it?
I'll say the last one you said.
Okay. So if that's the case, why do we now see if that's the case, why did we need affirmative action? We needed all this government top-down pushing to push women into the workforce, to push men out of certain occupations. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with hiring quotas and saying, well, we've got too many male CEOs, so we got to stop hiring men and we can only consider women for these positions, or the government will punish us? Is that fair or equal?
Well, that falls under what's called restorative justice, which is a conversation for another day. And I have also mixed feelings on affirmative action, but I know if I was born not a rich theater, drama, creative writing kid, I would probably think differently.
Well, I wasn't born rich or anything, and I'm glad that you got your degrees and your education. You have some impressive credentials, but I'm here with just a high school diploma and a cosmetology license. And I feel like I'm doing pretty well in this debate. So let's talk about some other things here. Let's talk about what have I got in my notes here? Oh, what about what happened on January 6, 2021? Do you feel like that was an insurrection?
What does that have to do with feminism?
I'm just wondering if you think that the January 6th incident was an insurrection.
No response, because that has nothing to do with feminism.
Well, you brought up the 1919 women breaking into government buildings to vote and acting as though them being arrested or beaten because they were being violent was somehow like this horrible injustice, this terrible thing that happened. But I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and guess that you don't think January 6th was people fighting for their freedom, and you think that was an insurrection and those people belong in jail. But the women breaking into government buildings to do something illegal because they felt really strong about it, I'm sure that that was a tragedy.
Well, I think intent matters, but again, that's where
Intent
I'm
does
ending
matter.
this.
Intent does
I'm
matter.
disengaging with this. I'm not going to
Okay,
talk about this.
so you're not going to engage with the trans stuff because it discredits
No.
everything you're talking about. You're
No,
not going
because
to engage with
because
this because it
I didn't
discredits you.
prepare for that, Rachel. This is not a debate
Can
about
you think?
trans.
Are you
This is
able
not
to
a debate
just
about
are you able to
insurrections.
just think on the fly at all? I didn't come with slides or a prepared argument. I'm just here using my brain and thinking through these things. So
Okay.
you have to have consistency in your worldview. If you don't have consistency in your worldview, there's a very good chance that you're wrong, and you should probably consider that.
I am always open. Okay, I'm sorry, there was a pause. I thought you were done. But
No,
I am
go ahead.
always open to the idea that I could be wrong. I just don't think I am. And I've given you my reasons, and you have failed to engage with what I am saying. That's where we're running into a problem here. I showed you my slides, I gave you my arguments, I showed you the images, and all of a sudden you want to talk about trans. I didn't say anything about trans. You want to talk about January 6th. I didn't say anything about January 6th.
I'm testing your logic. I'm testing the coherency of your positions. Your slides are not arguments. You
Ow.
gave us a lot of facts. You gave facts. I can give facts. Facts are not arguments. There's no such thing as like a brute fact that's self-explanatory. They all have to be interpreted and argued in a worldview. So
The facts support the argument that feminism is better for society.
well, do you think that feminism, tell me, okay, why don't you ask me questions then? Like where do you feel I'm failing to address your arguments?
Because I said feminism is better for society because this is what feminism is. It's equality. Okay? It is equal opportunities and dignities. It is not about sameness. You
How
keep
is
going
that
back
better?
to saying
How has that made things better? So you're saying, I think these things are good. I prefer them, but how has it improved society? And can you give me some
because
metrics?
it's opened up a lot of opportunities for women to do things like, I mean, we talked about you talked about this with Craig, write the code to put us on the moon. You know, in 18 whatever, before
That would
there
be
was the technology, she wouldn't have
that'd
been
be
able
cool
to
if it
do
really
it.
happened. That'd be cool if
You
that really
really think
happened.
Margaret Hamilton did not write the code to put us on the moon?
No, you can look it up right now and find out that she was just one person on a team of many, many people, most of
Well,
whom are
yeah.
men, who did all of the work, and that just because she happened to be in the bullpen with a bunch of men doing a little bit of clerical work does not mean she
Okay, writing
wrote the
code is not
code.
clerical work. Writing and developing code with a team is not clerical work. And it was feminism that allowed those men to take her seriously and take her opinion into account so that they could collectively write the code, put the men on the moon, advance technology. Again, another example of how feminism would not have arisen without the technology, which you, for some reason, thought was going to dismantle my argument, yet I'm telling you, no, this is true. And
Okay,
feminism
and
is
yeah,
good.
so what you're doing, well, what you've done just now is admit that there would be no such thing as this illusion, this idea, this beautiful fantasy called feminism if men didn't create technology and then use that technology to enforce rights on women's behalf at their behest for them. So
That
ultimately,
doesn't make it bad, Rachel. That does not make feminism bad.
well, it just makes it an illusion. It makes it not real. It makes it simply a social contract we have for now, which, by the way, I think is completely unsustainable and will end soon and be remembered as a bad dream because these birth rates are not sustainable. Men are getting sick of this. They're checking out. They're realizing, because here's what we
Yeah,
need
there are
to
a lot of incels. I
we
saw a
need
lot of them at DebateCon.
Oh yeah, they're incels. Lady, you said you didn't want to do insults in this debate, so please don't start calling men incels because I won't be able to restrain myself. But let's talk about outcomes. If you think that feminism is better for society, let's talk about the promises of feminism. Do you think feminism has made women and children safer as it promised to do?
I don't know if it promised that, but I do think it has.
Oh, it absolutely promised that. Check out the National Association of Women Lawyers, which was the lobbying group that fought for no-fault divorce, and pretty much every other major feminist organization, which had giant smear campaigns all the way from the time of Prohibition all the way up through the 1980s, which convinced most women that the main threat to them in their lives was their fathers and their husbands, and that this is why they needed no-fault divorce, this is why they needed sexual
Do you have any
liberation.
evidence to support that? Like, where are you
Absolutely.
pulling this? I mean,
What?
I'm not like saying,
The
this
propaganda
isn't true.
campaigns?
What propaganda campaigns? What are you talking about?
The Congress for Cultural Freedom is one good example. This was a
Okay.
CIA program. It was a Cold War program where they were trying to contrast us in the West with the, Stalinist kind of Eastern Bloc mentality and pushing women's liberation and feminism as part of the Cold War. So this was a huge effort with over 400 major media publications around the world. Gloria Steinem was recruited out of Smith College to join this effort in the 60s. She traveled to India and Europe to go to youth festivals and help promote feminism there. And it was same thing with her Ms. Magazine. Ms. Magazine, if you said you read my book, so in the beginning
Yeah,
I
I
talked
saw that
about
in
this,
there
how
with
the
the Hindu
CIA actually yeah, the
Hindu
CIA actually helped
sex god.
create and push Ms. Magazine to convince
Mhm.
women that they needed, this sexual liberation, that they needed abortion rights because they were being oppressed. So yes, this is, and again, like I said, during the women's temperance movement, which people will say that's a Christian movement, not exactly true. The people who were in charge of the women's temperance movement and got prohibition passed were actually like super left-wing progressives of the progressive era. They used the moniker Christian, but they were pretty radical. They were like Quakers, Christian Scientists. They were not like mainline Lutherans or Catholics for sure. They were the most radical leftist kind of subversive Christians. They had massive propaganda campaigns that were in pamphlets, newspapers, magazines. Time magazine was one of the big ones with the Henry Luce Foundation to convince women that pretty much all the men were alcoholics who were constantly beating their wives. This is why people believe this stuff. People believe these myths and these lies because of huge propaganda campaigns pushed by NGOs with billions of dollars. Do you need
So,
more evidence or no?
well, a lot of that was bare assertion, but what I'm going to say, Rachel,
That's not
is
bare
that it
assertion. That was a highly detailed, and you can Google it. I mean, I didn't bring slides, but you can look it up after and tell me if any of that was wrong. I've
well,
written extensively on all of this stuff.
I've reading your book, Rachel. I know that you've written about it. What I'm going to say right now is that we talk about framing. You're saying these people convinced women, they like
Mhm.
forced them to think this way. We can't
They
know for
didn't force
sure.
them.
Well,
It's propaganda. That's how it's the
okay.
same way we get the Americans to support World War II when nobody wanted anything to do with it was propaganda, right? Yeah,
Well,
I'm sure
and
you can
it's
agree to
being
that.
attacked too. That had something to do with it. But
Yeah, and I don't know if you know that, well, we won't get into that, but yes, propaganda is always used to sway public opinion. It's most of politics is just information war and propaganda, yes.
what I'm saying though is you frame it as propaganda convincing women of something. And I go
Yes.
back to Ibsen. You say this isn't reality. Well, Ibsen actually based that character off his friend. Um,
That's
and
an anecdote.
secondly, yeah,
Nobody's
it is an
nobody's
anecdote.
saying that there isn't an abusive husband out. There's abusive husbands. I had one,
Well,
okay?
it wasn't
There are abusive
okay.
husbands. There are
Yes.
bad men. However, it's not historically accurate that all the women were being beaten and abused by alcoholics.
When did anybody or when did I say that?
So
Because your
you
version
said
of
you said
I said
feminism.
oppression, which
You
is
said
not
feminism is protecting women. Don't you think it
I
protects
didn't
women?
I said it's better for society. I didn't say
Okay,
it
what is
protects
it? Then
women.
be specific and tell me what it does that makes it better.
What do you mean? What it does
You
is
just
it
give me
grants women
vague
person
platitudes.
it grants women individuality and personhood.
You don't
And
think they had that prior to 1920?
prior to 1920 when we got the very specific right to vote.
Okay, when did women not have personhood?
Middle Ages. We'll go there.
Based on what?
Spanish Inquisition, Malleus Maleficarum, witch hunts, all that.
Do you know that that was real? You know that there really were witches and that they were the
No,
ones who
Rachel,
most
there's no such thing as magic.
it
There's
doesn't matter if you believe in magic. It matters if you know that there were women who called themselves witches. They practiced witchcraft. They thought it was real. And those were the people who performed abortions. And most of the time,
Yeah,
when they
you
were
wrote
doing,
about that, Rachel.
yes, when they were doing witch hunts, it's because they were going after the
Well,
abortion providers.
well, that's actually not entirely accurate. If you read, it translates as like the witch's hammer or the hammer of the witches.
I've got a
It's
copy of it right back there. Yes.
Oh, you paid for it? It's in the public domain. But anyway,
I love having a real library with real books. I don't want to rely on digital copies of everything. I want to have a real library. So yes, I have
Yeah.
the Witches, Hammer of Witches. Yes.
Okay. It specifically spells out how to find a witch and everything basically listed in that book that does not have to do with what they think was magic is labeled as demonic. Women appearing in your dreams, demon.
Mm-hmm. And
So-
and do you think that do you think those things, again, this is where we have to look at the historical lens. Do you think pagans didn't do that to women? Do you think that men didn't do that to other men? Do you know that about 20% of people who were burned as witches were men? So yeah,
Yes,
there
I
were some
do.
men. Yeah, there were some men who were also persecuted in this way. But
Can I
just
show you? Can I
because
show you the slide that says that men benefit from feminism too?
they don't, though. How do men benefit
But-
from feminism when they let's look at the
Because
state
they
of
can be
family
more
court.
honest.
Do you think that men benefit from feminism in the family court system?
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Has feminism given men equal parenting rights?
Well, it gives the way family court works is it takes the one who's worse and limits the time with the children. Oftentimes that is a female. So now we're just
That's actually not true. So if you go to
All
my
right, whatever.
Substack and read the
I'm not
article
gonna
I
go to your
wrote,
Substack.
you should, because you'd learn
Well,
a
I'm not going
lot.
to.
You could go there and read my article, 45 Years of Data Proving That Men Are Not the Threat. There's
Men are not the threat. It's women who are the threat. Women who live with an unmarried partner that abuses the child in their relationship. I've heard it all, Rachel, and I still disagree
Is that
with
wrong? Is it wrong?
it.
No, it's not wrong.
It's okay,
No, it's not
Rachel,
wrong. You
but
just
that's
don't
listen.
like it. You just
Listen.
don't. No, you listen. You listen.
No,
Because
Rachel.
what feminism has done is it has exposed women to more violence, not less.
Wrong.
Women living with cohabitative partners and with other women have the highest rates of abuse. The safest place for women is in a marriage with the biological father of their children. That male is the least likely to
Is least likely to be reported, Rachel. You had the same debate. You were debunked.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
then
Rachel, I'm not going to
do
have this
better
debate
than
with you
Craig and
again.
show me where I'm wrong.
Because we're just talking past each other right now.
We're not.
Is
You have to
feminism-
contend with this. How is feminism helping women? How? What
because
is it doing
gives
for
us the
me?
choice of no fault divorce. If you don't like your husband and you're miserable, you can leave. It gives us the opportunity to be seen intellectually for what we are and to go be a CEO of a corporation if we want to be. It gives us the opportunity to go get a PhD. That didn't happen in the Middle Ages, and there are probably women out there who wanted to. Most of those women were actually nuns, surprisingly enough.
Exactly right. And let's talk about this is the framing again. How many men do you think were getting PhDs in the Middle Ages?
Probably not that many, Rachel, because it didn't
Almost
really
none.
exist.
PhDs were for a handful of the smartest people. It's
And the rest were out in the fields working, getting
That's right. That's
cannon
right. They
fodder,
were.
while women were also in the dirt, dying in childbirth. And
Yes, life was. It's almost like life was hard for everyone, and that women were not
No one
uniquely
is
oppressed.
saying it's not.
Women were not uniquely oppressed. So why did they need to be liberated? What did they need feminism for? If they weren't uniquely oppressed by men, what was the point of feminism?
To elevate the entire society to include women. Men benefit from it too.
How?
By being able to be more open and be emotional and staying
So
at
they can
home if they
cry.
want.
Hey
Yeah.
men, hey men, when you get your children stolen from you in family court, you can cry about it
Yes,
publicly.
they
Aren't you
can.
happy? Isn't that great? Isn't that
And
better?
they can go find support from a
Oh, well,
therapist or
thank
something.
God. Thank
Yeah,
God they
thank
can find
God.
emotional support after getting railroaded in court and getting their kids
Yes.
taken away because their
And
wife decided the husband, the neighbor next door is sexier. My wife decided the neighbor next door is sexier. He made her feel hot. And so she's leaving me and she's taking my kids, but at least I can cry about it. Thanks, feminism.
yeah, and you can go to a therapist and keep from wanting to commit suicide over it. But the thing
Or
is,
or we could just go
or
back to where we had intact families and children were raised in intact families. Let's talk about the risks of children.
Rachel,
Let's talk
in
about
the
the
Middle
risks of children
Ages,
in fatherless homes.
Rachel, in the Middle Ages where the father was at home, do you think domestic violence was lower than it is now when the father's not at home? A lot of this has to do with,
Yes.
okay, well, you're very wrong about that, but
How do you know? You can't prove that. You don't have records. You don't have domestic violence records going
I
back to
have
the
the
Middle
Magna
Ages.
Carta.
You don't have any
No, I
statistics,
have the
and
Magna
neither
Carta.
do
I have the
I. What does
Doomsday
that have to do
Book.
with anything?
It tells you about the society. You take these objects, this is what we do in archaeology and anthropology, and you study the society. You take the artifact, you look at it, you read it, and you look at all the evidence around you to build a bigger picture.
Mhm. Yep.
Yes. So we can look at
So
the way society was structured through tapestries, through art, through literature,
it's exactly what
Canterbury
I do.
Tales, the
That's
lay.
exactly what I do. I'm a feminist historian. That's exactly what I do. I go back and I read
You're
all the
right, Rachel.
history
You
and I
are a
read.
feminist, and for some reason you call
No,
yourself
I'm
an
not a
anti-feminist.
feminist. I'm a feminism historian. So I historically study feminism.
You study the history of feminism. But
What would the
anyway,
Magna Carta have to do with domestic violence?
because
How does it prove that there was domestic violence
it
at a
doesn't,
higher rate
Rachel,
than
it
now?
doesn't.
Then
That's
shut up. Then shut up about it. You have to do a better job. You have to do a better job because we're not getting to anything. You're giving me feelings. You're giving me your
no,
emotional state. You're saying,
no.
I prefer that men cry. I prefer
I
that people
said,
care about my personhood. How has feminism made society better for anyone? You haven't given me a specific example, but I can give you dozens of examples. And I'm sad you
Rachel,
didn't get to the
would you
last
like us,
chapter of my book because the last chapter of my book goes over all the statistics, and that's what we
Rachel,
should
they're
be talking
cherry
about.
picked. And
No, they're
most of
not
your,
cherry picked.
yes, and
Then
most
give
of the
me
people in
something
there,
else. If I'm wrong and I'm cherry picking,
I
then
said
you tell me
feminism
where I'm
benefits
wrong.
society
What is
by
it?
ending witch hunts. I
We
told you
ended
that.
witch hunts before feminism. We ended witch hunts 200
Feminism,
years before feminism.
no, before feminist theory emerged, before it had a name. Feminism is the idea that women can be socially, economically, and morally equal to men. It has been
Demonstrate to me
around
how feminism ended witch hunts.
because people finally started to listen to the women saying, I'm not a witch.
You think that feminism ended witch hunts because
I
people
think the
started to listen to the
idea,
women.
yes, I think the idea that maybe women have a mind of their own, are autonomous beings, can make decisions. I
Well,
think that idea
okay.
permeating
Telling me
society,
what you think is not the same thing as presenting evidence or giving me an argument. You're telling me that you just keep telling me, I like this. I think it's better, but you can't
you asked me to tell
substantiate
you
it.
how it's been better.
You
I
have to,
did.
do you understand what an argument is? You said you're a debate coach, ma'am. Do you
Yes,
not
and I,
understand how to
Rachel,
present
do
an
you
argument?
understand what an
You
argument
either
is?
have to have logic that backs it up, and so far in your logic, you've been
You have to have
wildly
a claim, you have
inconsistent.
to have evidence, you have to have reasoning.
Right, and you've given me none of that. None.
Okay,
Try
Rachel.
again.
All right, ask me a question.
Tell me how, give me a specific instance how feminism has made society better.
Feminism has made society better by having women be seen intellectually and morally equal, or at least competitive, to the men around them. And men have been able to become softer in a sense, more emotional, more honest with their partners, and more authentically themselves.
So, when I present statistics to you, such as the fact that now that we have more cohabitation, more LGBTQ relationships, more out of wedlock births, that these things, fatherless homes raise the risks for children on every conceivable negative metric in life, from being jailed to having substance abuse, learning disorders, being abused, having a criminal record, ending up in any sort of negative situation in life that you can think of. Having no father in the home is the #1 risk factor for children, far and away above and beyond anything else. That women who live in cohabitative relationships, lesbian relationships, are far more likely to experience domestic violence than women who are living with a married partner. When I talk about the fact that we have now
Rachel, this has been argued against you before, and you're just going to talk past it. But we can't know that for sure because oftentimes it's not reported in marital situations because
the
of
reason
society. We
the
can't
reason
know
I
this
the
for sure.
reason yes we can, and here's how we
No,
can. Yeah, this is
people lie, Rachel.
Okay, so we have 45 years of data from the National Incidence Study, which is an effort of
Yeah,
the federal
incidents
government.
versus
No,
incidents and occurrence. And incidents are reported. Occurrence just means it happens. We can't know this for sure. You talked about this with Craig.
but we can see if you can't look at data and see trends. You said in your opening, ma'am, that we should be making policy based off of data, and
Oh,
the
whoa,
data
where did I say that?
you literally said in your opening, we should be making policy based off of fairness and data. That's what you said in one of your last slides. And we have data. We have 45 years of data. And even if people lie, as a whole, you should see trends. You should see a trend that there's less domestic violence if no-fault divorce and feminism is going to protect women and children from abuse. You should at least see it trending in the right direction. And the fact of the matter is that we do not. What we have seen over the last 45 years of the NIS, which for everybody watching, is this massive effort of the US government where they collect data from every single reporting agency out there. Not just police reports, not just convictions, but also emergency rooms, therapists, school counselors, CPS caseworkers, anybody who is someone who's supposed to report, right? It shows
Yeah, they're called mandated reporters.
Yes, it's the data from all those people all across the United States, and we've had they do it about every 10 years or so. We've got 4 of these over the last 45 years, and the data is trending very strongly to show that women who are in a married partner relationship with a biological male and they have children with him, that this is a magnitude of 8 to 12 times safer on every single metric. We're not just talking about, sexual abuse. We're not just talking about battery. We're not just talking about emotional neglect or other forms of child abuse. Every single form of abuse happens 8 to 12 times less for married women than it does for women in any other living situation. And the most dangerous ones are lesbian relationships or cohabitative relationships where you're just living with a guy. So if feminism was supposed to protect women by giving them no-fault divorce and making it easy to break up families, it did not. All that did was make it very easy for predators to come into a single mom situation and abuse the woman and the children because she's more vulnerable without the man who would have the vested interest in protecting her. Same thing with fathers. You take fathers out of the home, children are at 10 to 12 to 15 times greater risk of abuse without their dad in the home. So how is feminism helping those people? Is being seen as a person and being able to cry to your therapist worth 8 to 12 times more abuse? I don't think so.
Well, that was very interesting, Rachel. But anyway, so I think what you are misquoting from me is slide 16. So feminism is equality. It was historically necessary, remains globally relevant, it benefits all of society. It is not radical, it is reasonable. And I think this is what you kind of misconstrued to mean your straw man. A
So you
society
don't
that
think we should
values,
make policy based on data?
I didn't say that. A society that
Well,
values
should we or shouldn't we?
Yes, we should. But I
Then
didn't say that, Rachel.
the data says we should get rid of no-fault divorce. And we should tell women that
Where
cohabitation is dangerous and that lesbian relationships are dangerous
okay,
and
by
that
saying
kicking your
by
kid's dad out of the house is dangerous.
Rachel.
That's what the data says.
So therefore, okay, all right. Implement policies. I didn't say that. That's a straw man. but I will go ahead and just go there with you for the
If
sake
it's a
of
straw
whatever
man,
this,
if
because I
it's a
didn't
straw
say it,
man,
Rachel.
well, what's your argument?
My argument is that feminism is better for society, and what
Why?
you are taking is what I said, because a society that values fairness, evidence, and human dignity is good. Do you agree with that?
A society that values what?
That it values fairness, evidence, and human decency.
Yes,
Is that
and
good? Okay,
it
that
is
is
good.
feminism.
And the evidence, no, that's not true at all. Those are
Rachel, it
virtues. You just
is.
listen, you just rattled off some virtues there. Feminism does not have the monopoly on virtue.
I
Fairness is
didn't say
not
it did, Rachel. That's
right.
another
So
straw man.
we can
Why
have
can't
fairness.
you?
Fairness would be no feminism. Feminism is the thing that throws off fairness. And I have some examples for you there too. You want to hear
Do
about
it.
that? I don't think you
Not
do, but
really,
I'll
but
tell
at
you
this,
anyway.
but because
Yeah,
I want to
so
get back,
how
Rachel.
is it fair? How is it fair that men end up getting falsely convicted of SA accusations all the time without evidence that he can be convicted in the court of public opinion and have his life ruined?
This actually that's actually pretty personal to me, Rachel, because I'm a booktuber, and there was a case recently where some psycho person got on there who he had recently or slept with like 2 years ago, was harassing him, saying that he SA'd him when really they didn't. It was consensual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see what that has to do with feminism.
Well, feminism, do you
Because
remember
I no,
hashtag Me Too? Do you remember Believe All Women?
yeah, and I
Or-
didn't say that. I didn't believe all women is not feminism.
Okay, do you know and understand when you bring up the marital grape thing that you didn't have to make marital grape illegal because battery and rape were already illegal?
Not when you were married to the person.
That's not true, actually. So if you could bring now, it's always hard whether you're married to the person or not. Bringing a grape case forward, it's hard because you don't always have evidence and things like that. So it would be the same whether you're talking about a guy who graped you on a date or a guy who you were married to who graped you. It would be difficult. I'm using the YouTube terms of service. Sorry about the word. But it's always difficult because it usually ends up being hearsay and his word against hers and
Rachel,
those sort of
before the
things.
1970s, marital rape was legal in all US states.
It wasn't legal. That's where
Yes,
see
it
this
was.
is no, this is the framing. This is the framing again. You're acting as though there was a law that said, "Thou can grape thine wife," that they enshrined it in the law that you could do this. What you're really trying to say is there was no law in the books that specifically prohibited a husband from graping his wife. There was still laws
Yes.
against grape and battery. Why does it have to be specific to the wife? The law against grape would be against grape. You don't need
That's
to
yes.
have, you don't need it.
Yes.
It's not, but it is not accurate. And it's actually a lie. And it's a kind of pernicious lie to say that if there's not a specific law outlawing grape within a marriage, that it is legal. That's not the same thing. If you could be convicted of graping your wife, if there
You
was
couldn't
proof,
if you were married to her.
but you could. That's wrong. It often didn't
It was
happen.
yeah, because it was protected.
It often wasn't no, it wasn't protected. It just often wasn't prosecuted because it was too hard to match the burden of proof. How are you going to prove that a person that you sleep in bed with every single night that you've made babies with raped you? That's a really tough thing to prove in a court of law. So it wasn't
Rape
that
itself is tough to prove.
it wasn't that people condoned it. It wasn't that it was looked upon favorably. It wasn't that it was allowed. It was that it was like, how are you going to really prove it? It's tough to prove. And even with a law in the books against it, it's still almost never prosecuted and incredibly hard to prove. So it's just this disingenuous framing yet again that makes it seem like men were just raping their wives. It was just happening every day, all the time.
I didn't say that, Rachel.
Then
I
why
said
did
it wasn't because
why
I
did we
said
need
it
a
was
law specifically against that? This is what
because
I'm
it happened.
This is an example.
Because it happened. It didn't mean
happens now.
Yes, and there's a law against it, and you can go to
And
jail.
it doesn't do anything because you still have to meet the same bar of evidence. That's an example of feminists passing a law for the purposes of propaganda, for the purposes of framing, to get people to think that, oh, can you believe this? Without us feminists, everybody was just graping their wife and everybody condoned
Rachel.
it and it was legal. Can you believe that when it's totally
Rachel,
disingenuous
let me clarify
framing?
what you are saying right now. I am hearing you say that feminists pass a law to criminalize raping your husband or wife in order to push an agenda.
Yes.
Is that you believe that's what
I
happened?
absolutely do. And I'll explain to you why. Let me explain. So, do you agree that it's legal right now for a wife to steal from her husband?
Well, it's not, if you're talking about laws, agreeing or disagreeing is not
Okay, are there
relevant.
laws? Is it legal for a wife to rob her husband?
Yes.
Can she steal from him?
Well, I mean, that's when you look at legality. I mean, you may call it stealing, but when you're married, you share everything.
Well,
So you
there's
may
no
call it stealing, but legally it's not.
Well, but Amanda, there's no specific law on the books saying that it's illegal for a woman to steal from someone if that person's her husband. Therefore,
Mm-mm.
it's legal for women to steal from their husband.
It's
Can you
not
believe that?
stealing.
This
No,
is a
Rachel,
tragedy.
Rachel,
We've got to
that's
do something about
Rachel.
this. Do you see
It's
what I
not,
mean, though? Do you see
no,
it? It's
no,
analogous.
no.
It's
It's
completely
not
analogous.
analogous, Rachel.
Theft is illegal.
Rachel, this is where the terms matter. If
Yes,
you're
I
married
agree.
to
That's what
that
I'm saying.
person,
What I'm
if you,
saying is
Rachel, if you're
theft
married
is
to that
illegal.
person, legally, it's not theft. If you were
Right.
married to your spouse, legally, it was not rape. That's how it's analogous. So you're
Exactly.
saying,
So
can
what
you
I'm
steal from
telling
your
you,
husband? The
now you're
answer
getting it.
is no.
Yes.
You cannot steal
Yes.
from your husband legally. I can argue whether or not you should, that should be illegal, and it probably should.
Yeah,
Okay? But
okay.
under the current law, it's not theft
So
because you have joint ownership.
so you see how someone like you saying it used to be legal to grape your wife is not true.
Yes, I see that.
It's a technicality that you're
Yes.
using to make it seem a certain way.
Yes.
That's all
Okay.
I was trying to
Yes.
point out. Okay.
Okay. I
So
still do not agree nor think it is in any way moral to say that women, that feminists wanted to criminalize marital rape in order to push an agenda, which just what agenda? Because I've been very clear in defining feminism. The general, understood, accepted definition of feminism is economic, social, political, moral equality.
yeah,
Is that a good thing?
I don't I don't think it's not a good thing. It's like saying vanilla ice cream and with whipped cream and a cherry on top. Do you think that's good? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
What do you
good.
mean
It's
so?
good. So it's
That's
like
that's
it
where
does
this debate
it
falls
begs the
apart.
question. No,
Because
it's begging the question because
okay, begging the question. Okay,
we
good.
could have a fair society with in fact I would posit that a fair society would have no feminism because you were kind of alluding to this question of Rachel,
Rachel, but
why do you what's the agenda, Rachel? Why would they lie? Why would they falsely frame things? Why would they do this stuff? Why would they launch propaganda campaigns? What do you think they're up to? Like, what are you alleging here? And what I'm alleging is that feminism is a power grab. Now your whole
okay.
opening
I
presentation was
disagree
it's
with that.
not. I know you
Yeah.
disagree, but now is my turn to tell you why I disagree. The reason
Okay.
I disagree is because I don't really care. You said I think intentions matter sometimes. Sometimes it
Okay.
doesn't. There's women like
I think in
you.
that oh my God. I
There's
think in
women
that specific scenario you brought up, because I'm not in any way trying to speak in generalities, and that's why I shot down what you were saying. I think the intentions behind, and yes, congratulations, you got it out of me. I legally, yes, 1919 was an insurrection, yes, but they were fighting against true injustice. You know,
well,
most people would agree.
the people
The
who
people
did what they did on
yep,
January 6th also truly believed they were
yes.
fighting against an injustice as well. So what
They
I'm
did believe that. Yes, Rachel, but
yeah,
I think one insurrection was bravery. It was worth it.
this is
And in the end, they got what they wanted. And the other one, I think, was just a bunch of idiots throwing rocks.
You're like a poster child for why I would happily give up my vote if it meant that all the other women couldn't vote because you don't really care about the
Why are you
logical
speaking
art
for me?
I'm not speaking for you. I'm speaking
You
for
don't
me.
really care about isn't speaking for me. And Rachel, when you beg the question, that
All
your
you've got
circular
is
reasoning.
emotions.
No.
All you've got is feelings. You're like, I feel that these people had a good reason for doing an insurrection, and I don't
Well, we talked
prefer
about
the
intentions. I
reasons
think
these
those intentions were the right ones. I think the
it doesn't
intentions.
but women are
What
the
does that
people.
have to do with feminism?
This is why women shouldn't vote. This is why women shouldn't
Oh,
be in
wow.
leadership positions, because most of them are like you. And they care about intentions, they care about feelings, they care about optics. I want to be seen. I want men to cry. And I'm like, well, I would like for women to
I didn't
not
say
die
I
as
wanted
much in
men to
childbirth.
cry.
I would like for children to grow up with their fathers. I would like for less women
So
to
would
suffer
I.
domestic violence.
It's
Well,
fewer, but
feminism has
whatever,
made all these
Rachel.
things worse. I'm telling you that
Rachel, you don't. Rachel.
your well-intentioned bullshit is destroying people's lives and
No,
killing
it's
them, is
not.
what I'm trying to tell you. I have proof, and you have no
You
proof.
have nothing.
You have no data. You have no arguments. You have
I do, Rachel.
not made a case whatsoever.
Yes, I have.
I'm the one who's come with all the statistics off the top of my head. I didn't even need
Congratulations.
line.
I've got some too.
You don't have any. Give me a statistic. Give me any fact or figure that proves that feminism has actually protected anyone, helped anything, or made anything better. You just go, I think it's better that they're seen as a person, and that's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything.
How does that not mean
It's
anything?
your self-report of your feelings, and I don't
No,
give
it's
a shit
not.
about that. It is.
No,
Prove
how?
it. Demonstrate it.
Demonstrate that being morally, socially, economically equal to another human being is good? Because that's the argument.
Unicorns and rainbows are good, ma'am. Show
that
me.
what has nothing to do with feminism, Rachel.
Give me a metric. Give me any type of measurable metric that we can look at and say, okay, before feminism we had this, but after feminism we had this.
Rachel,
And
I
that's
think the
better.
problem here is what you're talking about when you say feminism. You're specifically talking about the movement, the period of time when it occurred. I am talking about feminism as a theory. We're not talking
It's a
about the same
before
thing.
and after. We can look at history before feminism as a political force.
So you're talking about the women's liberation movement. You're not talking about
Yes.
feminism. That they're
Yes.
not the same thing.
What's the difference?
The difference is one is a movement, the other is a theory.
Why?
Worldview.
Okay, what does your theory do if it doesn't have a political arm behind it? Jack
It exists.
shit. Nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does nothing. So it can't help society unless we enact policy based on it, correct? Now, don't play stupid. Don't play stupid. You're smarter than this. You know that there was a time.
I thought you said you didn't have to be very smart to be a teacher, Rachel. So now you're okay, but I'm smarter than this.
I think you're proving that. But I do
Rachel,
I think you're being dishonest. You're being dishonest.
I'm not being dishonest.
You don't think there's a time pre-feminism and a time post-feminism? You don't. Feminism as a political ideology didn't exist until a few hundred years ago.
It didn't have a name. It existed.
Yes, and I do grant you that in my book, but what we're talking about is what happened to society, because in the last 100 years, our society has undergone more social change than it has in the rest of human history combined. We have flipped society upside down in
Rachel,
a
that
century.
can be argued against,
and we're here
but
to
I'll
talk
grant
about,
it to you.
We are here to talk about the results of that.
We are here to talk about
did that.
We are here to talk about whether feminism is better or worse for society.
So
and that's what I keep trying to say.
Demonstrate to me one metric, any measurable way that we can see that it's better. How has it made? We have feminism now, do we not? In the West, in America?
What do you mean when you say we have feminism?
Do you think men and women have equal rights and representation in the United States?
Well, I'm going to say no, and you're going to find a way to argue that.
Okay, tell me one way that men and women do not have equal rights and representation in the United States.
Have we had a female president?
No, but that doesn't prove we don't have equal rights or representation.
Well, you said representation. Isn't a president our representative?
How much of Congress is female? What if the people just don't want you believe in democracy?
What if
the women
Rachel,
have the vote? In fact, women vote in larger numbers than men. So if we haven't elected a female president, it must be because the women don't want it, because they vote in larger numbers than men do now.
Okay, Rachel, that is a major fallacy.
How?
Because of that's not.
You're the one with the fallacy, saying that we haven't had a female president.
What's a fallacy, Rachel?
Show me one right in
No,
this
answer
country.
this.
No, you
What
answer
it,
me. I
no.
asked you first. Name one
Eh,
right in this country that men enjoy that women do not.
One right in this country that men enjoy and women do not. If I
Yeah.
bring something up, you're just going to say it's not a right and we're just using that word. I'm not talking about legal rights. Okay?
Okay, when will we know if we've hit equality? When do we know when we've hit equality? When do we know when we've hit it? We finished. We're done.
We're
Feminism
not
has
done.
achieved. Okay, when do we know?
It's an ongoing process.
But how can we measure the progress? How can we measure when we've gotten to equality? What would it look like? What would be some metrics you would use to measure if we've
But
reached
that's the
equality?
issue, Rachel, is it's abstract and you're having
Yeah, it's almost
trouble.
like it was meant to never be done. It's all
No.
of the social justice stuff seems like it's meant to eternally be a force for revolution, chaos, and disruption. It almost seems like by design, there is no metric by which you can ever point to it and say, we've gotten there, guys. We've achieved the equality. Equality is here. And if that's the case, what
That can be
exactly are we fighting for? How do we measure progress? If I'm going on a diet and I
Oh my
want to
God.
be at a healthy body weight, obviously I can measure the progress towards that goal. Any goal.
Progress is the goal. That's where
Progress toward what? What's the end goal of the progress?
there is no end goal, is what I'm telling you. There's no end goal of a theory. What's the end goal of, I don't know, communism or something?
Well,
Like,
communism has a stated end goal, which is a
well, it's never
stateless
happened.
society. I
Well, it's
know
never
that,
happened.
but a communist would tell you that full communism, and all the communist writers wrote about this at length. Again, should probably do more reading if you're a teacher. They said
Rachel,
that we would know
check out my Goodreads. You can see how many books I've
they
read. Last year
said,
it was
well,
100. This
it's
year I'm
not
at
sticking.
79.
It's not sticking
Yes,
because
it is.
communists, Marx himself and all the other communists after him wrote about how we know when we've achieved full communism. And it was things like a cashless society, a stateless society, no more
Rachel,
government,
that's where the
no more
difference comes.
hierarchy.
Okay,
So,
no,
if we can't measure when
I
we've
think this is
achieved
where the
equality,
Christianity comes
if
in
we
and is
can't
stilting your
measure
brain a
how
little
we've
bit,
achieved
Rachel.
equality, then what the hell are you working towards? And how do you know you haven't achieved equality? If you don't know, you're like, it just never ends. We just keep going forever. Do you understand
didn't
what
say
that sounds like to everybody who's listening to you right now?
You're not listening to me, and that's the issue, because
Okay.
you've said that I've said certain things that I didn't say. You're like the queen of straw right now. But anyway, what's a fallacy? Because our terms right now are not aligning, and that's why we can't communicate. We are saying the same words, and they mean two different things to both of us. Tell me what a fallacy is right now, because if we're both using that word and we don't mean the same thing by it, we're not going to get
A
anywhere.
fallacy would be a place where the logic of your argument is broken or doesn't work. It's something that can't logically be true. Something
Okay.
that contradicts, something that is circular. There's like all different types of fallacies,
So,
but it's basically a flaw in the logic.
well, yeah, it's a bad argument. It's something that makes your argument not an argument. So when I say feminism is better for society, you say, so it begs the question. That's circular reasoning. That is a fallacy.
What would that have? Okay. In the context of this debate, what do you think you're proving to me when you come with no argument? You just say, I think that good stuff is good. Isn't that a fallacy? Wasn't your whole opening? Isn't
I
your
didn't
whole
say
thesis?
that.
Your whole thesis here is feminism's good because it's good.
Feminism is good because it promotes equality between men and women socially, economically, and morally.
Why are those things good? Based on what? What's your epistemic justification for those things being good?
Common sense. And yours
That's
is
what
religion.
that's literally appeal to common sense is literally an appeal to consensus fallacy, ma'am.
You do that in your book, actually, when you say most people didn't want this. But Rachel, we can go very, very deep into this. But when I'm saying my basis of saying that all of this is good is based on reason and the way I feel.
Where's the okay, the way you feel definitely, but let's get into the reason. Where's the reasoning?
My reasoning is that females are people. women are people, and it is good for people to be able to make progress in society, to be able to voice their opinion and be listened to.
The good
To
is
be
the
able
good is the good. So you gave me a bunch of platitudes. You gave me a bunch of I prefer this. So
No, I didn't say I prefer this.
well, why ought I prefer what you want? Why ought I prefer equality, for
There's the
example?
argument that you already do, Rachel, because you have a career. You've written a book even though it was self-published. You've
I
done a
address
lot.
Yeah,
You've
do you want
done
to
a lot.
address that? Is that
No.
why don't
I
you want
want
to address it? If you think it's a
what?
point,
This
then let's talk about it. So, do you think that
Rachel,
women weren't allowed
no.
well,
You're gonna go back and say, "Oh, women were allowed long
they
before." But
were,
it
they
what
were allowed, they were
no
allowed.
one
How do you
is
think
saying they
feminism came
weren't.
about? Well,
No
then why
one's
do I need
saying they
feminism?
weren't.
Why do I need feminism to write a book
I'm
if I
not
could
saying
write
you
a book
need it.
before feminism?
I didn't say you need it. I said it makes society better
Okay,
than a society
what does
without it.
feminism do for me?
For you, it gives you the ability to leave those two husbands
I didn't
before,
leave. I didn't leave.
all
They
right,
left.
whatever, baby
And
daddies,
they
whatever.
left, and that would be because of feminism and no fault divorce and sexual liberation makes it perfectly acceptable for men to just dip out on the family. They don't have any financial obligations. It makes casual
Well, that's
sex
actually the reason
acceptable.
that a lot of feminists are pro-abortion or pro-choice, because men can dip out on their family whenever they want
I
and
know
women
that's
can't.
so
But
what this really
that's a
comes
tangent.
down to is
I don't
that
want to go on it. I don't want to.
your prescriptions for society are atrociously evil and anti-human. So you think that
Yeah, because
so you think that
moral
the
equality
solution,
is
like
evil.
Charlie, like that awful woman that debated my husband, who told me that actually it would have been better
I
had I
don't.
aborted my kids, that was the solution. It wasn't to
I
keep
didn't
the
say.
family intact. It wasn't to have a social atmosphere that expects families to stay together. It was to just abort the kids, right?
Why are you bringing that up?
Because you just said that actually,
You
yeah,
asked what feminism could do for you, and I
feminists
told
would say,
you.
you said feminists would say, just get the
I didn't
abortion
say.
and then you don't have to
No, I
argue.
didn't say that. I didn't say feminism would tell you in
Well,
that specific scenario to get an abortion. That is what that one person said.
I'm
I am
still waiting.
saying.
I'm still waiting for you to give me just one thing I can measure. The measure that you said the progress goes on forever, the progress, but
No,
where
I
have we
said
made the
progress is
progress?
the goal.
Okay, if there's no goal to the progress, you are full of shit,
Progress is
ma'am.
the
There
goal.
is nobody who thinks you can just have eternal progress with no end goal. That's not possible. Progress toward what? Toward what? What's 100 years from now? If we made 100 years of progress, what does that look like? What's different? What has changed?
It looks like, the pay gap, which you think is a myth, even though it exists, lessening. And it has lessened. That is measurable. 15, 20 years ago, it was 75 cents to the dollar. Now it's like 82.
Oh,
There you go.
great. Good. Good.
Yeah, go
We've
ahead.
got something to
Start
work with.
talking about maternity leave and how men want to work more hours. Men want to work more hours. So when you account for that, even though you said control, so when you account for that, you have to take into the account the variables. The pay gap practically disappears. Well, here's this, Rachel. Not all women go on maternity leave. Tons of women work overtime. Not all women are married. Okay? That is where the inequality comes in,
Oh,
because it's
okay.
forced on that pay gap is
Okay.
forced on every woman, regardless of whether or not she takes that so-called time off that you're talking about.
So
There.
you, as a guinea pig mom, an unmarried guinea pig mom, what is stopping you? What holds you back from making as much money as a man?
I signed a contract. It's the people who want to pay me. That's what's stopping me.
Are there any
I
men who signed the same contract that you signed?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
not my specific contract. They sign a job contract.
is
And
there any reason you
statistically,
can't get yourself a better contract? Is there a man that's a reason? I'm trying to figure out where the disparity comes for you as a person who does not need maternity leave, who does not need to spend more time at home with children or guinea pigs. I think the guinea pigs are probably fine. Uh, why would it be hard for you to make the same as a man? If you have the same skills
well, it's
and you
not
have the
whether or not
same
it's hard. It's
values,
just that it doesn't happen
why doesn't it
statistically.
happen? Why wouldn't it happen for you?
Why wouldn't it happen for me? I don't know, like, I think you're picking this apart.
No, that's what
I
we're
don't,
here to do. That's what
not
we're here to
really.
do.
We're
So
not here to
I
do a
want to know
reductionist.
if a man, do you think that a man with your exact same skills and your exact same value in the labor market is making more than you?
That's what the metrics show, Rachel.
That's actually not true. This is
Yeah,
another,
okay.
it's another case of
Tell
you
me.
no, listen, I'm going to explain some things to you because once again, it's a good thing I'm a homeschool teacher. I think I can help you with this. The
Rachel,
reason, so when we're looking at
you talk about
population,
reality, Rachel. You keep your kids out of reality. You live in some kind of weird
no,
orthodox anti-Semitic bubble. Yet
I'm
I'm
not
up here.
anti-Semitic. What are you
I
talking about?
book, sweetheart, you are.
You're going to call me anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
You better prove that claim.
All right. I'll refer everyone to your book.
Where in my book is there anything anti-Semitic?
Something here. I've got to look in my notes, but
Okay, you look while I explain to you that the
well,
wage
if I'm
gap.
looking, I'm not going to be listening. So that
Well, I'll just
defeat.
explain it to the audience because you're not going to listen to me anyway. The wage
No, I
gap
am
is
listening
talking
to you,
about
which is
okay, then I'll explain it. The wage gap's talking about populations. So we're talking about men as a whole and women as a
mm-hmm,
whole. And within
the
those
same
two
thing I'm talking
groups,
about.
when in those two groups, there are a large number of women who do decide to have children, who do decide to take more time off because either they just don't like working as hard or they have family obligations or whatever their reasons are. Statistically, the truth is that women opt out of overtime more and they opt to stay home more and they opt to take years away from the workforce to raise a family. That skews the data. That doesn't mean that you, ma'am, who does not do any of those things, you can work as much overtime as
Do
you want. You don't have to take maternity leave. You don't have family obligations. No one is stopping you from working a 60-hour week like my husband did for
I?
15 years.
I
Nobody
actually
is
work
stopping
pretty
you.
close to that.
Nobody is stopping you from acquiring better job skills for a better paying job. You have all the opportunity in the world. You don't take it. That's not an indicator
That's
that the patriarchy is oppressing you. The
I
wage
did.
gap is there because of women's choices.
No, it's not.
Feminism is about women. Yes, it is. What explains the wage gap besides that?
Sexism.
Okay, so you do believe that men specifically are oppressing women, that men look at women and go,
Saying it's the
I'm
system.
gonna pay her less. Okay, the
Yeah, it's
system
the
is made of
system.
people. The system is made of
Mm-hmm.
people. The system is not a machine. There are people who hire. There are people who give wages.
I
People
found
hire
it.
you and okay, tell me where
Okay.
I'm anti-Semitic.
Okay. Feminist academia. So I'm taking this out of context, but you asked me to find it, so I did. This is the first one that really stuck out to me. So feminist academia has done a good job of portraying Christian persecution of witchcraft and its practitioners as hysterical, superstitious, ignorant, sadistic hatred of women. Hollywood, with its obvious Jewish influence, has helped perpetrate this anti-Christian, anti-male bias by producing numerous movies and TV shows portraying witches as mysterious and misunderstood threats to patriarchal power, and the men who persecuted them as fools who were merely scared of female sexuality to such a degree that they became paranoid mass murderers of women who deviated even slightly from cultural norms.
Yeah. Where's the anti-Semitism?
Why'd you have to bring in with its obvious Jewish influence? What does that have to do with
Well,
anything you had to
because
say?
I'll explain, because if you go on to read the rest of that chapter, it explains that Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, particularly the myth of Lilith, are very
That was a little bit before. You talked about Lilith before. You didn't talk about that in this
I do
chapter, but go ahead.
I know, it's so I preface it with talking about that, and then I go on to
Well,
explain where the witch hat comes from. It was Jewish Kabbalists that had this
yeah.
triangular shaped hat,
Mm-hmm.
and so, it's no secret, by the way, Hollywood has
Yeah,
talked
it's
openly
actually
about
right
it.
here.
The Wizard
So
of
you didn't
Oz.
claim that. Somebody, yeah, solely
Yeah.
also writes that during the Middle Ages, pointy hats were worn by Jewish Kabbalists whose rituals were associated with satanic worship, hence the origin of the pointed witch's hat.
Yeah, and that woman who I'm quoting is herself a third generation witch. So this isn't
Well,
me
there's no
being
such thing as
mean.
witches, but okay.
They practice witchcraft as a religion. So yes, there's such a thing as you can say you don't believe in magic. That's fine. You can say I don't think witchcraft works. I don't think it does anything. That's fine. I don't
Okay.
believe in
No, that's fair.
horoscopes.
That's fair.
But a
That's
lot
fair.
of people, I'm
Go
not
ahead.
saying magic is real. I'm saying these women practice it as
No,
a
that's fair.
religion.
I'll
It's
grant you
like a
that.
goddess worship religion. So there, this is no secret. The Wizard of Oz is a great example. L. Frank
Mm-hmm.
Baum wrote
You
Glinda
wrote
the
about
Good
him too,
Witch.
which was interesting because I was actually reading that with my sixth graders.
Yeah, did
But
you
yeah,
know
go
that
ahead.
I think I tell you right in my book that his mother-in-law was
Was, yep,
Matilda
you did.
Joslin Gage, a
Mm-hmm.
very influential first wave
Mm-hmm.
anti-statist communist feminist. And so that movie, he wrote it kind of as
No, he
propaganda
didn't
that
write the movie, he wrote the book, but yeah.
well,
The
he
book's
wrote
a
the
lot
book.
different than the
He
movie.
wrote the book kind of as, hey, witches can be good, and Hollywood loved it. And if you read a lot of the stuff from when that movie came out, it's one of the older ones. It's from like 1938 or something.
1939 was when
The
the famous one
Jewish
came out.
producers loved the idea of a good witch. And the same thing with the Bewitched, the TV show.
I didn't watch that.
Making witchcraft into like a cute like witches aren't bad, it's Christians and their evil superstitions that made
There's
witches
something
bad. So
interesting though when we talk about L. Frank Baum. There's actually a
that's
line
not
from that.
anti-Semitism though. That's just me stating historical
Well,
facts.
I don't know why you had to bring Jewish
Because
really into
Jews are
it.
opposed to Christianity. They think that Christian influence unfairly demonized witches. They think that. They will tell you that themselves. Don't take my word for it.
Okay. Anyway, there's a line from The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy was like, "Oh, my Aunt Em told me witches died hundred years ago," and then the Good Witch is like, "Well, is it a civilized country? In all civilized countries, witches are dead. This country isn't civilized." So, if we want to talk about like what L. Frank Baum thought, I just thought that was interesting to
So, do
bring
you
up.
retract your charge of anti-Semitism then?
No, I don't. But
Oh, come on now. You can't smear me with something and send the ADL after me unless you can
I'm
demonstrate that
not
what I
sending the ADL after you. I feel
well,
like I did demonstrate it.
don't slur me with something
I'm
like
not.
anti-Semitism is very serious, and if you're going to call me anti-Semitic, you need to demonstrate that
I
that I've said something or done something anti-Semitic.
I believe I did. And you
By
hired full
telling
right.
you what Jewish people themselves said about this, that's me being anti-Semitic.
No,
Movie producers say, when
the
Jewish
specific wording you used
kabbalists
in your
say,
book, the
it,
specific wording you used
how
in
is
your
that
book,
anti-Semitic? I'm saying it was
because it
Jewish
is,
influence, and
yeah.
Jews will tell you themselves proudly and gladly that, yeah, we think Christianity and the witch hunts were terrible, and we wanted to give witches a nice treatment. We wanted to give witches like a good rap. We wanted to take away this awful Christian superstition. You don't think that's good? I think you would agree with them. I think you would agree with Jews that it was the bad Christians doing the witch hunting, and that it's good that Jews, put this nicer spin on, hey, you could be a good witch, you could be a bad witch. Witches aren't inherently evil. There's nothing wrong with witchcraft. I'm telling you what they said. I'm not accusing them of something they didn't do. I'm not saying anything bad should
I'm
happen
telling
to them.
you,
I'm not saying I hate them. I'm not saying anything bad about Jewish people. I'm simply relaying actual historical facts that it was Jewish Hollywood producers who wanted to portray witchcraft as something good.
yeah, that's where wording is very important. And I think you failed in that one sentence, and I will retract what I said.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, if you could, please tell me how feminism is good for society just one last time, without just saying it's good because it's good. It's good because it's nice. It's good because it's fair. It's good. Like, why should we want a society with feminism versus a society with patriarchy?
Well, we still live in a patriarchy, and
How?
feminism and
Can you
patriarchy,
demonstrate that?
well, it's just culturally that most people, even feminists, will tell you that, the one husband, one wife, 2.5 kids, that's a very patriarchal thing, and that's fine. Okay, patriarchy just means a male-headed society. It is not something that is inherently bad. But when we talk about the patriarchy, when we use that specific term, we're talking about the bad patriarchy.
Okay,
So
what?
please,
So
I
please define the bad patriarchy so I know what you mean.
bad patriarchy is the patriarchy that sees women as lesser than men
So it's
and
just how they,
restricts their roles.
okay, so they oppress them,
Yes.
okay, so patriarchal oppression. Okay, so
Yes.
we finally, after 2 hours, gotten you to finally admit, and I don't know why you didn't just say this in the beginning, that you do believe that prior to feminism becoming the dominant thing in the political culture, that there was this oppressive force, this oppressive systemic force that oppressed women, and that the role of
Yes.
feminism and
I've said that the
in
whole
politics
time.
No, I asked you
Oh
this.
gosh.
The role
Wait a
of
minute.
feminism in politics is to liberate women from this patriarchal oppression, correct?
It's yeah.
So, can you tell me, since that has all transpired, we had this patriarchy, feminism comes in, it begins to liberate all the women. On the
Jeez,
other
so
side of
sorry.
this, I know that you're telling me we're still in progress, it's still in progress, but so far, can you tell me what it has done for society that is better than what we had under patriarchy?
Hold on one second. My makeshift tripod here. Um, okay. So you are talking since feminism became mainstream, we'll call that the women's liberation movement. So something that didn't exist before then, is that what you're asking
Well,
me to provide?
what changed and why how can we demonstrate that it's better? Not just assert that it's better, not just say it's better because it's better, it's good because it's good,
Well,
but
I talked about that with the economics, that when you put women into, or the economy, when you put women into the workforce, that's just more people
so
fueling the engine.
GDP go up.
Did
GDP go up?
GD? Yes.
Okay. So you like capitalism, I would guess.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I love that. So, do you think that having a slightly higher GDP is an acceptable offset for now having a two-income economy where, because feminism was supposed to be about
No, I know
choice
what you're
for
gonna say. I
women.
know what you're gonna
Yep, it
say,
was supposed to be
and
about
I think
choice
it
for,
is
don't
better
let
than
me
it
get
was
it out for
before.
the love of Pete.
Well, I mean, okay,
Feminism
for
was supposed to be
them.
about choice for women, but now I always hear women tell me, Rachel, I don't want to go to work. I think working sucks. If I could stay home with my kid, I would, but I can't because you can't get by on one income anymore. And you're
Yeah.
right, we pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers in the 1970s, and by 1990, we had doubled the workforce in less than 2 decades by adding women to it and making them right on par with men. They're about 50% of the workforce, slightly under. They're like 49% of the workforce now. So now we do have a two income, we have a slightly higher GDP, although you could argue that that might not be from women being in the workforce. But let's just say it is. We have a
Mm-hmm.
slightly higher GDP, but now we have a two-income economy, and that means that
Mm-hmm.
all the kids have to go to daycare, and that the average American family pays 25% of their income to daycare workers. And so women have to work. It took away their choice. So is that true?
I'm well, here's what I'm saying. I'm not asserting that nothing bad has ever resulted for feminism. I am asserting that it's better.
So you think the trade-off was worth it? You think having a
Yes.
slightly higher GDP is
Mm-hmm.
worth taking away women's choice to stay home and have more kids if they want to do that?
Well, I think I don't think that's exactly what I'm saying, but if you want to take it that way,
Well, this is
fine.
supposed to be the part where you argue back and tell me why that's wrong.
Say it again.
So you said feminism is good because my GDP is slightly higher. And I said, okay, the GDP is slightly higher, but now because
Well,
the
that was a
reason it's
response to,
higher is because we shoved women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we've created a situation where now a family can't really get by on one income and the women have to go to work. And this is a great question because feminism will try to have it both ways. They'll say, we fought for your grandmother fought for your right to work, which there was never a law against women working. There was never any like women couldn't work. There were some
I
restrictions
don't know
on
anybody who's
some
claiming that.
jobs that married women could have, but they were allowed to work. But let's just say feminists tell me all the time, we fought for the right for women to work and have a career and have their own money. Okay, but now they're in a situation where they really don't have the option to not do that. If they would like to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom like me, they've got to like write a book or, do debates on the internet at night when the kids are, can kind of take care of themselves and they're older. That's our
It's a
only option.
trade-off. It's a
So,
trade-off, but
and you think that it's a good trade-off. You think that
I think
taking the
it's
choice
better.
away from, okay. Okay, so you think it's
Rachel,
better that all the women are in the workforce and that
they're not all in the workforce.
almost all, yeah, it's a really, really high number. So now the women who do want to stay home, not only do they face massive economic hardship, but they don't have their mothers or their cousins or their sisters or their friends at home to help them like they did before. Children used to be raised in extended families and in communities because all the women were home raising the
Well, we
kids.
call that school nowadays, but you don't send your kids to school.
Yeah, I think I think you probably do think it's great that the children are raised by people like you. You're their family now.
No,
You raise the kids.
no.
Okay, because
No.
I don't, the reason I homeschool my kids is because I want them to be around their mother, their father, their aunties and uncles, their cousins, their neighbors and friends in their community, our fellow parishioners
Not
at our
everybody
church,
is
and
afforded that
not,
privilege.
I don't want Amanda Norman to raise my kids, but most women feel they don't have that choice. Most women feel they've got to use the public school system and they've got to pay for daycare because they can't make it otherwise. So if
Then don't have
feminism is about
kids. No one's
choice
making
for
them have
women,
kids.
if
No one's
feminism is
making them
supposed
have
to be about
kids.
giving women choices, why did it take away their choice?
It didn't take away their choice to have children.
It
They
just
don't have
made,
to have children if they don't want to.
what if they
That's
want
wh-
to, what if they want to have a
Well, then they want
traditional
to have it both
family?
ways and they can't.
No, what if women, what,
If
most
you want to
women,
have,
most women didn't want to go to work. And I bet there's a ton of women watching this right now. They're going to be like, she's right. Fuck this shit. I don't like going to work. Whose idea
because you're
was this?
lazy.
Whose idea was this that I have to get up every day? Oh, they're lazy?
Yeah.
You said that, okay, so you think women who'd rather stay home and raise their children are lazy.
Yeah.
Do you
But-
think you could survive one day in my life as a mother of
Yeah.
5 children under 11?
Yeah.
You think you could
Rachel,
do?
I teach 11 and 12-year-olds every day. 7 times a day, I have a room full of 15, 11, and 12-year-olds. Yeah, I could do it.
Yeah, in a building where you have them for like an hour and then they switch out to a different kid and you get to go home at the end of the day. You're not up with them all night while they're throwing up. You're not around them all day long. You have a building, you have other teachers, you have other adults. You've got this whole
You have a
huge.
husband. You have
a
your
whole-
aunt and your cousins and
I
all
don't
those other
though.
people.
I don't, because all the
But
women
I
in
thought
my
that's why
family
you
went to work.
homeschooled.
No, the women in my family all went to work. So yes,
But you said you homeschooled
orthodox.
because you want them around their cousins and their aunts and their husband.
I do, but
all
you
that.
sent all the women to work. You sent all the women to work.
So then why do you homeschool if that's not your goal? I mean, this is getting way off target, but I think it's just
it
kind of
is my
showing.
goal. I'm saying that women like you, selfish women like you who want to be guinea pig moms, ruined it for the women like me who want to raise the next generation of human beings because you think I'm lazy and you think you're the one doing the real work because you sit on your ass in a classroom for a couple hours a day and read out of a book and grade some papers. I'm also educating my own children and raising them 24/7. And I
2
would
of 'em.
love it. And the other stay-at-home moms would love it if we weren't this tiny minority of people who are now kind of isolated because all the other women are in cubicles making money for corporations and to double the tax base and to make sure that women like you get to indoctrinate our kids with your worldview instead of ours.
You
So
don't know how the public school
feminism is not
system works
about
because I've
choice.
never once shared
Feminism
my
is not
views with
about choice.
children.
I know what you can't teach children all day. You just told me you
I
spend
can't
more time with
teach- I
kids than I do. You spend as much
I
time
didn't
with
say
kids as I do.
that.
So
I didn't say
you're-
I spend more time with children than you do, Rachel. You were
You're a
strawmanning me.
diehard leftist. You think that
No,
doesn't
I'm not.
ooze out of your yes, you are.
I'm not.
Okay. Give me one political view you hold that's right wing then, or conservative.
Denying gender affirming care to children, which I said at the beginning.
That's just
That is
not
right leaning.
That's not right leaning. That's like barely sane. That's you don't get
Okay,
right
I
wing kudos
actually
for
I'm not going to talk about
mutilating
Rachel.
children.
I'm not
Yeah,
going
I
to
know
talk
you
about
don't.
this anymore.
I know you don't.
Did you
Well,
circumcise your child? Do you have boys? Did you circumcise them?
I'm not going to tell you that.
This
Then why
might
should I
be-
tell you?
This might be a good opportunity to go into the Q&A. Do you
I
guys
think
have
so.
any topics that you
Do you
still
wanna
want to
do
cover?
She talks
closing?
about mutilating children, and then she's like, I mean, Rachel,
You think
That is-
circumcision is the same thing as
no,
turning
I
a
don't.
kid's penis inside out
No.
and taking his testicles off, removing
Did I
those
say it
breasts?
was? Did
Well,
I
then
say
why would
it
you
was?
bring it up? Why would you bring
I
that up?
brought it up because you talked about mutilation, and some people think it is.
Let's
I'm
do
not
let's
saying-
do closing statements real quick, James, and then we'll go to super chats.
My closing statement is that this debate was a mess. Rachel never once engaged with what I was actually saying and instead shoved a pile of straw into both my eyes and ears. That is my closing statement. I wish you would have, really, Rachel, I really wish you would have engaged with what I was saying instead of just begging the question and doing this weird sort of circular reasoning, contradictory cognitive bias thing that you do. I think I don't think you're dumb and I don't think you're ignorant. I just think that you don't want to go there. And it just, That's what I think. I'm not trying to speak for you. I just wish you could have engaged my statements and my thoughts a little bit more.
We'll give Rachel a closing statement as well.
Okay, well, what I think is that you sit there and say I strawmanned. I didn't strawman anything. I asked maybe a dozen or more times to please present if I'm getting the argument wrong, if I'm presenting a straw man. I even tried to steel man your argument. You couldn't reframe it to me in a way that was anything other than your preference and your emotional reporting. All you brought was a slight history lesson at the beginning, a lot of framing that, women were oppressed and then feminism came in and now it's better. You couldn't tell me how it's better. You couldn't give me a single metric by which we could measure progress toward any
GDP.
goal. You said there isn't really a goal. And I think you really showed your true colors at the end of this. I'm not the one who's delusional here and not engaging. You're the person that on multiple points when I brought things up to test your logic and to test the consistency of your worldview, you knew that it was going to expose you as being contradictory. So you said, I'm not going to talk about that thing. I didn't do that once. I just told you I'm not going to tell you about my son's genitals, which I think is fair. So what everybody watching this,
But you'll talk about other children's genitals.
This is my
I have to give
closing.
Rachel a
Turning them
chance to
inside
This is
finish.
my closing statement, ma'am. What everybody just learned from watching this is that you have nothing more than emotional reports. You can't tell us what feminism did for anyone. We can't measure the progress to know if it's even working. There is no end goal by which we could tell if we ever have achieved the goals of feminism. Therefore, I guess it doesn't have any goals. And I came with multiple facts, statistics, evidence, and corrected you on multiple historical facts and pointed out contradictions in your worldview nonstop this whole time. And it's typical of a feminist person. And at the end, she showed her true colors, which is really what it always boils down to with feminists. It's about envy. It's about them being outcasts of society that feel like the patriarchy or like the, traditional stuff doesn't work for them, and they're bitter and resentful and they hate it. And so they're feminists.
This is a good opportunity to jump into the Q&A. I want to give you folks a quick update as there's a lot going on here at Modern Day Debate. We are very excited. If you did not know it, Rob Knorr, he will return to Modern Day Debate this coming Tuesday, debating Adam Kahn again on whether or not Trump was a better pick than Kamala. You don't want to miss that debate. It's going to be a juicy one. Adam Kahn, if you don't know him, has been featured more than once. They apparently liked him the first time on Jubilee's Surrounded. Very quick on his feet. You are going to enjoy that debate. Believe me, it's going to be rapid fire. With that, we're going to jump into your questions. Thank you very much for them, folks. Thinking about anything else? Our guests are linked in the description box, so check out both Rachel and Amanda's links in the description box below. Modern Day Debate is fully dependent on our speakers. We appreciate them being with us, and so check out their links. This one first coming in from Basil Problem. By the way, did you guys want... I'm just going to save a lot of time because some of these super chats are just not substantive. So mostly Basil Problems. But let me check here. They say, Modern Day Debate, we know what happened in room 627. I don't know what happened. I don't know what that means. Bless my vibe code. It says, my girl barely has the physical strength to lift much more than a laundry basket. You're really going to tell women they should be underwater oceanic pipeline welders or Navy SEALs? Come on, it's nonsense. I think that's for you, Amanda. Oh, you're muted. Sorry about that. Let me. All right. There you go.
I didn't say that.
You got it? This one from Quani Upstate. Good to see you again. It says, if feminism is nothing more than equal rights for everyone and not female-centered, why call it feminism?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that. It's that I even said that kind of in my closing statement, is if we called it equality, there wouldn't even be a debate. So I think that was why it was really important for us to define our terms at the beginning, because that's all it is. And is it a misnomer? Maybe, but I haven't particularly looked into the linguistics of all this, but we call it feminism because I guess we're female. So, and we are
Well,
historically oppressed.
I will just add to that that even if she just called it egalitarianism, I would have treated the debate exactly the same because I'm not an egalitarian. I don't think there's such a thing. I don't think it's achievable. I think it's exactly what Amanda said it is. It's a pie in the sky, feelings-based idea, just an ideology that has no end goal and no way that you could ever measure progress and say that you have achieved the goal. So I think that hierarchy is inevitable and it's ultimately helpful and good.
Drew says, Amanda, did zero research on Rachel. That is arrogant. Give you a chance if you want.
I think she
Well,
did, actually.
I read half of her book and I'm going to finish it. I think I'm at like 63%. And I did see that clip you talked about with Charlie. I haven't seen the full debate because I'm not going to sit there and watch 6 hours of that. But yeah, I'm on page 82 of 131 of Rachel's book. Admittedly, Rachel, I did not know who you or Andrew were before DebateCon. I've seen since then a couple debates, but yeah, I've done a little bit. I haven't done a huge deep dive, but I know who she is.
You got it. This one coming in from Basil Problem says, to Andrew Wilson's wife, tell us about the witches. Were they pro or con voting? Would they like Harry Potter? You just have to put up with this guy.
I don't know how they feel about Harry Potter. They were actually very pro voting. A great number of first wave suffragists were witches or practiced various forms of spiritualism or witchcraft.
I like that part in your book.
This one from Bless My Vibe Code says, just a politically... Okay, that's weird. Basil Problem. Let's see, says... Okay, that's another weird one. Basil is one of the... He's a nasty guy. FB says... It says...
I know. I have Frederick Douglass's hairstylist or something. It's fine.
No, it wasn't.
I knew what I was getting into.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The FB.
I don't think he's very far off though. It's just his hair I was born with. I will never have great hair. It is what it is.
It's tremendous hair. And this one from FB says, ignoring historical context, modern science developed largely within Christian civilization. Acting like secularism would have been less barbaric back then is just dishonest revisionism. Weak argument, in all caps.
I'm not sure I argued that, but I don't know. Because back then you can't really separate religion from culture. So I don't know what that person's point was, but I didn't say that.
You got it. This one from Alejandro Vallejo says, feminism led to anti-discrimination laws, parentheses 1960s through 70s, that let women enter high-skilled jobs. Productivity rose without new technology. There is an example. I think they're saying for you, Rachel.
But can I respond to that?
Sure.
It rose at the same time technology was rising. So I don't see the point in that question. Or if it was even a question. Like it couldn't have risen without technology because nothing advances without technology because technology advances too. So whatever.
I think I agree with Amanda on that, but also, yes, there were certain sectors of the economy that absolutely saw increases in productivity by adding women to the workforce. That's for sure. But if you take a look at the top jobs, like the top 20 jobs occupied by women now versus 100 years ago, they're almost exactly the same. We traded out farm work for HR work, and we have a lot of digital prostitutes. Digital prostitution has absolutely exploded because of feminism and because of technology. Thank you, Boop. And yeah, I would say...
I'm not a fan of pornography or OnlyFans either, so there's another right-leaning thing for you.
Good. You sound more like a TERF. You sound more like a trans exclusionary radical... Maybe not so radical, but a little trans exclusionary feminist and more of this
not for adults, just for children.
Not so much the sex positive. Like this is a big battlefield on the feminist side is
as far
trans stuff, but the sexual liberation stuff, because some of them were extremely sex positive and we're like, yes, prostitution should be legalized. We should call it sex work. We should encourage
Yeah,
it. It's great
that's
for
like
women.
right where I am in your book, actually.
Yeah.
That part. But is that zero sugar vanilla cream flavored
Hell
Dr. Pepper?
yeah. Dr. Pepper Zero
From
cream
Kroger in
soda.
Texas, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I got it in Michigan too, but it's by far the superior zero sugar
I like
soda.
the cherry one. But
Wait,
anyway.
what was it? I love diet soda.
No, it's zero sugar cream Dr. Pepper.
That's
It's
cool.
so it's ridiculous.
It's really good. I think I have one right behind me. Oh no, that's Pib Zero. Okay. But anyway,
Dr. Pepper.
I don't know.
Okay.
Dr.
Just
Pepper
wrote that down.
distracted me. It's yeah.
That's
Dr. Pepper
excellent.
distracted me.
This one from
Superior. We talk about superiority. Dr. Pepper is superior to anything else.
Dr. Pepper Zero supremacy over here.
There we are.
Basil Problem says Andrew Wilson's sandwich maker. Would Paul the apostle have agreed with you speaking in front of the congregation like this?
Good point.
Yes, actually, I think he would have, because, and I say this all the time, this is like, people really think they've got me with this one. It's like, oh, but you're a woman and you're talking. It's like, Paul never said women can't speak. He said they are to be silent in the church, and what that meant was they're not supposed to be teaching. They actually had a problem in some of the cities that Paul was working to establish the early churches in, where there were cults that were goddess worship cults. It was like actually part of the city life in some of these big, I think, I forget the one Andrew could tell you because he brings this up a lot, but there was goddess worship cults in these pagan cities where it was like a major part of the culture in the city life. And these women who used to be like either temple prostitutes or priestesses were coming into the church and trying to kind of blend the Christianity with the goddess worship. And so Paul was like, nope, can't have women teaching this stuff because they're trying to mix all this stuff in. If I were, say, like a Phoebe type of a character where I was like helping the diaconate and I was going there to talk to the women and say, hey, this goddess worship stuff is bad, and like the child sacrifice and the temple prostitution is bad, and like, you know, you should come be Christian instead and not bring any of this with you, I think he'd totally approve of that. Where he wouldn't approve is if I was trying to assert authority over men or teach things that were contradictory to what the bishops and the priests who were men were teaching. So I was born in a time and place where feminism is the dominant political ideology, and I am here as a woman to oppose it, because when the men try to do it, like my husband and so many other, Brian Atlas, all these people, Myron Gaines, they get attacked, they get called misogynist, they get called incel, they get called woman hater, they get called, I bet you abuse women, you know, people will try to destroy their lives with that stuff, and that stuff doesn't work on me. That's why I'm here. If feminism, I can tell you what my goal is. If it went away, if all this shit went away and it would never look the same. But if we could have a true patriarchy again, if we got rid of no-fault divorce, if we got rid of sexual liberation, women's lib, all this stuff, I would be happily gardening and doing all the other things I love to do more than this. But here I am.
This one from Basil Problem says, Modern Day Debate, can you pass on to Main First Project? By the way, folks, Main First Project sponsored DebateCon 6. We do appreciate them. You can see them at the bottom right of your screen as I load that up right now, as well as you can check them out in the description box. They help make DebateCon 6 possible. We appreciate them very much. This one from Emperor Fat Ass Dogs says, Amanda, you do realize without
names.
That's right. You do realize without men, women would have no rights. Thoughts, Amanda?
I don't know if we would have no rights, but men could be feminists too. I've established from the beginning that it's not man-hating, so I don't see why that's relevant.
This one from Basil Problem. Basil does have a real problem. Says Andrew Wilson's ashtray cleaner, I think they say, is the size of the cross on a person's necklace proportional to their love of Jesus? He likes to troll.
Yeah.
No,
it's not, but you know what? So far, his descriptions of me are pretty accurate. I am the sandwich maker, and I am the ashtray cleaner. Can I do an impression of you real quick, James?
Yes.
Reading the super chats? Okay, this is James reading the super chats. And another one from Captain Poopy Pants 87. Captain Poopy Pants says, Amanda, why does your hair look like Frederick Douglass?
That's pretty
My
good.
dad, that's where I get it.
That is good. And
Wow.
I always,
It's because I'm like 3% black, actually.
Sorry, I had to do it.
that is a good impression. And 3% black. Wow. Really? Do you think that's why your hair is the way it is?
I know that's why my hair is the way it is.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
epic.
A lot of
This
the Irish have some pretty impressive fros.
Yeah.
this one from Drew says, I am going to identify as a feminist going forward and grift. Sign me up, James. I'll bring arguments. Wow. Basil Problem says, Andrew Wilson's marriage inferior person. As a cosmetologist, is the mullet the most holy hairstyle? They don't know what a mullet is. Okay.
It's pretty based. I like it. I'm a redneck myself, so I can appreciate a good mullet.
Nazier says, question for Amanda. Does feminism care about, let's see. Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, Amanda, if you're for women's rights, then you should have zero problem saying trans women aren't women.
I disagree.
Jake Hans says, Rachel, I'm a fan of uncensored. You and Andrew, do you think the idea of human evolution and technology in the next 100 to 200 years leaves no room for pure equality? Patriarchy just / most important right now?
Huh?
I don't know if I totally understand that. I don't know if I understand what he was getting at there.
We'll just do the. I think they're saying, like, is patriarchy the most important, like, force for change right now, or do you think the idea of human evolution and technology in the next, let's say, 150 years leaves no room for pure equality?
Well, the thing about it is that if you read the writings of early feminists, and even up into the 70s and 80s, a lot of the feminist theory ladies really were transhumanist. They saw biology as the final frontier. Most of them were Marxist too. So they thought we're going to have Marxism. Then once we get pure communism and the technology is good enough, we can overcome biology and be transhuman. And then we can just do away with sex and gender altogether. We'll have artificial wombs. We have this. They envisioned a future with androgynous, non-binary people and all of the babies being born in like test tubes or artificial wombs or something, so that they're all monists. So they want to turn us into a big beigey brown blob. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a pretty bad backlash, and I think that feminism is going to end. I think it will become a defunct ideology that we look back on and go, wow, that was wacky times, wasn't it? Because the birth rate can't sustain it. Men are starting to check out and realize, hey, we don't really have to enforce all this garbage on women's behalf if we don't want to. And it's like really bad for us and for children, and for on a lot of levels, we're seeing a lot of carnage. Maybe we shouldn't support this anymore. We're kind of seeing men check out. And if men don't enforce feminism, if men don't enforce women's rights, there's no women's rights. So
this one from Basil Problem said, Andrew Wilson's bedmaker, you are a second-class citizen. Why should men listen to you?
Men shouldn't listen to me. I'm not really here talking to men so much. I'm not like a men's rights activist or anything like that. I'm here actually talking to women and saying, hey, if you want to be a mom and stay home and raise kids, and you love your husband and you want to be like a great helpmeet to him, and you want a nice Christian family where you can fully embrace being a feminine woman and a mother and a wife, and not feel this insane pressure to have to compete with men in the workplace and have a career and prove that you can do it just like the boys can do, that's okay. You're normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not lazy. I was told this too. I was told this when I had my first daughter at 20. I had a full ride scholarship to college. I did not go. I stayed home. All I ever wanted to be was a wife and mom. I thought that was awesome. It didn't work out for me right away, but now I've been with Andrew for 18 years. I have everything I could have ever dreamed and more from being a great wife and mom. and it's hard work and it's fulfilling work and it's a lot of self-sacrifice. And I want to encourage women that those choices are not only valid, they're great choices. And don't listen to feminists who tell you you're lazy or you didn't do anything with your life because you couldn't hack it in the career world. That's bullshit.
This one from Cake Hans says, James, your channel made me love debates. Thank you for your kind words. Cake. Big League Drew says, Amanda, by the way, all credit to the debaters. They have they're what's made this fun. Big League Drew says, Amanda, if you didn't, they said, okay, this is a question. We hear this all the time. Amanda, don't screw this up. I'm not joking. This is almost every debate. If you didn't have breakfast today, how do you think you'd feel?
I didn't have breakfast today. I
Oh,
don't eat breakfast.
no! No!
All right, Rachel, you can't just leave Amanda in the dark. Can you explain it so
Okay.
Amanda knows?
The breakfast question, it's kind of lame, okay? We're not super serious. The breakfast question is a little bit of a joke, but it's also there to test if you can engage with a hypothetical. So if somebody says, how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast this morning? You should say something like, I'd probably be hungry. But if you say, well, but I did have breakfast this morning, or but I didn't have breakfast this morning, like you're not understanding that it's a hypothetical question of how would you feel if. So but in this case, I mean, we do have a little trouble with engaging with the hypotheticals. So, well, not me.
This one
Well,
from
It's more
Basil.
straw man, but not hypotheticals. But that's
not
okay.
a straw man.
This one
No,
from
hypothetical is not a straw man. It's just I refuse to respond to whatever. Just go.
Basil Problem says, Rachel, did you ever work at Supercuts? Oh, I think this is supposed to be an own.
I didn't work at Supercuts, but I worked at a similar chain place because it's a great place where you can make a ton of money if you're really good and you don't have time to build a clientele. Like when I had just moved, I worked at a men's haircutting place and I was pretty good at it, if I do say so myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
This one from Basil Problem Nasty Guy says, Modern Day Debate is one of they said, I have to tell you, I love Main First Project. Check out their link in the description box. Oh, that's nice. This one from Basil Problem says, we got that one. Emperor Fat Ass Dog says, Andrew Cuomo is my favorite feminist. This one from Basil says, Andrew Wilson's salami slicer. Tell us about, I don't know what that means. Big League Drew says, my signed DB6 poster is awesome. Thank you. Oh, your DebateCon 6 poster signed by Rachel Wilson.
Let's go.
Street cred. It's awesome because of the debaters. They say, I love it. Thank you so much. Hey, thank the debaters and thank you for coming out to DebateCon and supporting it. Big Lee Drew says, Rachel, who is your favorite occult/esoteric writer?
My favorite one? That's tough. A lot of them are really terrible. Like Alice Bailey is so ungodly awful to read. It's like the worst writing you've ever read in your life. It's like bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, nonsensical paragraph, more bullet points, and just on repeat. I don't know. Rudolf Steiner's kind of fun to read. Helena Blavatsky is fun to read because she's so full of shit that it's kind of fun to read, but not because I think there's anything to it.
Interesting, to say the least. This one from Basil Problem says, oh, we got that. Pardon. Manny Fresh says, thank you very much for your generous super chat. As early as the 14th century, in multiple cultures, there is recorded law that allowed women to annul a marriage if the man's Johnson was too small or he was thought to be impotent. If women were truly their husband's property, how is this allowed? Amanda.
Because the purpose of marriage was for procreation, and if that could not occur, then the marriage was null and void.
Basil Problem says, Modern Day Debate, what exactly... Oh, gosh, what a sick freak. Nazir says, did Amanda think she can just assert things without those assertions being challenged with counter evidence?
Well, here's the thing. I would have loved counter evidence and I would have loved my assertions to be challenged, but I just felt like the whole debate, like words were being put into my mouth and Rachel was arguing against what she thought I said versus what I actually said. And I think this goes back in, this is a really good thing to bring up the whole breakfast question thing. I came to this debate wanting to argue things very much at face value and just listen to what was said and debate what was put in front of me.
Yeah,
And
but this is a very common thing that we run into, and this is where it helps to have a little bit of training in philosophy, especially if you're going to be a debate coach. This idea that what you just said is, I wanted Rachel to grant my starting axioms and grant my framing and not question any of my presuppositions. I wanted to start from my starting point and have the debate on my terms. You don't get to do that unless you can first justify where you're starting from, why you're framing things that way, or like what your presuppositions are. That's a very
well, I felt like I did that, and you didn't engage in it because it was on my first couple
no,
slides.
I tore
but
that
that's fine.
apart. I
No, you
absolutely
didn't.
dismantled that. Yeah, you'll
No, you
read the
didn't.
comments later, and other people
Well, okay,
will
Rachel, you
explain. And
often use the appeal to popularity or whatever.
no,
A
it's not
billion
popularity.
flies
I'm
eat
not
shit
saying that.
every
I'm
day. It
not
doesn't
saying
make
that.
it
No,
right.
no, no. I'm not saying that most people will agree with me. I'm saying that what will happen is when you're engaging with me, you put up this like steel wall where you think I'm not engaging with what you're saying, when what I'm doing is getting to the root of what you're saying. I'm getting to the entailments of your positions. I'm attacking your presuppositions, and you don't want me to do that, so you just
You don't
plug
know
your
them.
ears. And what people will do in the comments is they will further expound in written form, and maybe you can read it and absorb it and understand that, like, you can't just come in and go, feminism is good because the equality is good, and if feminism is about equality and therefore I win. That is not an argument. That is an assertion. It's based on faulty presuppositions and false axioms that you just want me to grant you, and I'm not willing to do that. So you should examine the foundations of your positions and your arguments so that people like me can't just come in and knock them over.
I have, Rachel. That's the problem.
I literally just blew your foundations out of the water. I did.
No, you didn't.
In denial. Okay. Well, you never gave me an argument. You never gave me a metric by which we could measure progress in feminine. You didn't. You were like, it's just good. It's just, I just think it's better.
No, Rachel, I gave you the GDP.
Boys can cry now.
Selective memory. I gave you the GDP. And then I said that was an appropriate trade-off. I did. So
yeah,
again,
but that's also.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
again, you were like your lying.
Preference. You prefer a bigger GDP and broken families and higher rates of abuse and addiction and societal dysfunction, and I prefer a 2% drop in GDP to restore the family unit and the fabric of society and all of the other risk factors that make people's lives horrible.
We're having trouble with abstraction here.
So.
Rachel,
if you really want to look, if you want to sit here and say GDP went up 2% or whatever more than it would without feminism, and I think that's a good trade-off for absolutely disintegrating all of society.
No, I don't. You're saying that you're taking this thing, saying that is the absolute disintegration of society, and I'm looking you in the face saying, no, it's not.
You're saying that, but you can't demonstrate how it's not. You can't say actually it's fine that 50% of kids are raised in fatherless homes now. It's actually good. And let me show you why. It's, some of it might be bad, but here's all the metrics where the fatherless children are doing better. Here's all the ways that no-fault divorce is actually, well, you would have to, because I said we didn't have this before. Do you know that prior to no-fault divorce, it was like less than 5% of children had fatherless homes and mothers that were working? It was like a tiny percentage. So as we have seen that flip and we've seen those numbers invert, not only did welfare spending go up 12 times in lockstep with the number of out-of-wedlock births and divorces, but
I know all this, and I'm just saying it's not because of feminism.
It is because it's a direct result of sexual liberation and no-fault divorce, which were two primary objectives of first and second wave feminism.
I disagree with that.
You can't disagree with it unless you're disagreeing with all the feminists who did that very work, ma'am. The suffragists themselves, the Women's Temperance Union, the National Association of Women Lawyers, Ms. Magazine.
Rachel, I'm reading your book. I've seen all this stuff.
They are telling you. So all of feminist history agrees with me.
Out of extreme. No, it doesn't.
They do. They
It's
agree
because
with me.
you're
I'm
very
telling you
good
what they
at
said.
taking words out of context and
It's
twisting
not out
them.
of context.
Yes, it is.
The women who led the feminist movement said that their goals and aims were like, okay, here's a really good one. I would love you to refute this one for me. Simone de Beauvoir, the hero of second wave feminism, probably the premier feminist academic of the 20th century, in an interview with Betty Friedan, said, there can be no such choice for women to stay home and raise their children, because if there were such a choice, too many of them will choose that one. Society has to be completely changed and should be run completely differently. That's her telling you. This is the leader of the 20th century feminism, the academic feminist who created all of this, who pushed all of this, telling you exactly what she wanted. What she wanted was women shouldn't be staying home raising
This
their
is a
children.
good example of how I'm saying you're kind of taking things out of context and cherry picking. So what she was saying is that staying home is an option, but inherent biases force too many women to do that.
No,
It's not.
she said there shouldn't be such a choice. I've got the quote right here in my phone. So you keep telling me I'm taking them out of context. I'm literally telling you exactly what they said. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many feminists, like, okay, another one, Alexandra Kollontai. She was the highest ranking Bolshevik woman, the first international like high ranking government official in any world government. She was an actual diplomat to foreign nations, which had never been done by a woman before, and she was Lenin's premier propagandist. She was a really prolific writer. We have so much writing from her, and she explicitly states in her writing that we must dissolve marriage and the family. Why? Because being Lenin's girl, she was a Marxist, a diehard Marxist, and she said that the way to get rid of private property, you'll never get rid of private property unless you get rid of fathers, because it's through the patriarchal lineage, it's through fatherhood that men have any sort of motivation to, build a legacy, own property, own a company. So in order to remove this incentive from men, we've got to take away the family. If they don't have children, she actually wanted a society where nobody knew who their dad was. She thought we should have like full moon orgies and stuff.
Yeah,
So
a lot
nobody
of them
could,
were weird.
yeah,
But
so nobody could know who their dad was. And the same thing with August Bebel, who was a
yeah,
man. He
okay,
was a very popular Marxist writer. They
yeah.
wanted to get rid of the family and marriage because that was the way you get communism. And you're
Rachel.
telling me that I'm taking them out of context and that I'm
No.
twisting it. And it's
I'm
like,
saying this is what I'm saying. I was able to piece it together finally. You are an Orthodox Christian. Yes.
yeah,
You take the Bible, the writings as word of God, 100% absolute, the authority. Yes. Correct?
yes.
The
Well,
ultimate authority.
one of the authorities.
One of them, yeah. Okay.
Orthodox
I come
thinks
from a
they're
Protestant
related.
background. Protestant Orthodoxy is a little bit different, but
Yeah.
you believe that God or the writer of the Bible, the church fathers, or whatever, those are the absolute authorities, and what they say is correct.
Yes, the church, the Orthodox Church.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
It's not like that for feminism. Feminists can disagree with each other. Feminists, these people who theorized feminism, put it all together, the historical people of it, they're not the end all be all correct.
I granted to you already that there's been huge divisions. In fact, my next book is about the divisions between the Marxist feminists and the classical liberal feminists in the East and the West. They actually hated each other. A lot of them hated each other. A lot of the Marxist ones wouldn't even call themselves feminists because they thought it divided the proletariat. So yes, there were major factions and major disagreements. However, they all had some things in common.
Yes.
With
And
a
what I'm
very
saying
few
is,
exceptions. And one of the things they had in common was, and this is something you believe, so I'm not strawmanning you. You think no fault divorce was good. You
mhm,
think that sexual liberation was good. You think
mhm.
that women, who want to stay home with babies are lazy. You said that. So it's like, it's very clear what you believe. And for you to constantly accuse me of strawmanning is bad faith.
No, I'm not accusing you of strawmanning me on those certain aspects. There were times where you were like literally doing it. But what I'm saying is just because they were the first originators of whatever does not make them the ultimate authority.
I never
And
said
that's,
that they were. I would never even
Then,
allege that. I would never allege that. But you can look at
but I'm saying what they said doesn't define what feminism is. So I don't understand why you
but
keep having to bring it
I've been
in.
arguing you and what you say. So you say no fault divorce is good. You
Yes.
say women being in the workforce and doing that instead of staying home with kids is good. You
Yes.
say these things. So I'm
Yes.
arguing your positions. So that's not a straw man.
No, that's not. That's not what I was talking about when I was talking about straw manning. But what I'm saying is you're citing all these people to say why feminism is bad because they were the first people to do it. They're not the end all be
No,
all
that's a
gods of
you're the
feminism.
one who
So
is
what they
perpetually
say,
not understanding. You don't understand what I'm saying. I'm giving you examples. So I'm saying here were the goals and aims of feminism, and you can say that you don't believe there are goals and aims, but then what are you expecting out of this? If you're saying feminism is good, it has to do something. It has to change something. And I kept asking you, if it doesn't change anything and it doesn't do anything,
but
how
no,
could
you
it
didn't
be
say
good for
change.
society?
You were
I
asking about
did.
an end game.
I said there's been no, I asked you, I said, okay, prior we had patriarchy. Feminism becomes a dominant political force. Things change. What things do you think changed and what was good? And you said the GDP. And I
Well,
countered.
I said the economy growing and the GDP growing, and that was one
Do you
very
think the
specific
economy
because
and
you
the
asked for a
GDP wouldn't
metric,
grow
Rachel.
without that though? Yeah, that's fine, but it's not an
But
airtight
I didn't
case.
say it wouldn't have grown without it. I said that is one thing with a metric that we can measure.
Yeah,
So
and
can we
I'm
go on to
saying
the next
that,
question?
yeah, sure.
We'll go to the next one. This one from Maverick says, question for Amanda. Even if we
Sure,
had a
please.
female president, would that mean we had achieved equality? How about if there were 45 female U.S. presidents? When would this equality be achieved?
And me and Rachel just spent a lot of time talking about it. I'm not going to repeat myself.
Nazier says, is there a, but just to like humor them, because I do want to, so if there was one woman president, is there a yes or a no?
I mean, it would be a big achievement for, I guess, women, but I'm not saying that that is the end all end game of equality being accomplished. I
What if
don't
it
know what
was,
it is. It
what if it
doesn't
was,
need that absolute. It
okay.
doesn't need an absolute of here, we've
Will you
achieved
know
it.
it when you see it?
I don't know.
Will you feel like we have
I
it?
don't know.
This
I
one
Well,
don't know.
from,
then, you know, if one of my kids came to me and said, Mom, I want to do blah. And I was like, okay. And they were like, but I don't know what that looks like. And I can't tell you how we do it or how we get there or
No,
what
I
the,
can tell
I'd
you
be
how
like,
we do it. I just can't tell you the absolute end game of boom, equality. And I
but can
don't,
you even describe, can you like, I'll try to steal Manuel. I'll pretend I'm Amanda. I would say something like, when you know, we have a roughly equal amount of male and female CEOs, when there's no longer any disparities
okay,
in
I'll give you the,
health
no,
between
no,
men
this
and
popped into my
women or
head. So I would say when equality could be achieved, when people could stand on nothing but on their credentials without sex or gender being a factor.
okay, I think that
And
that's fair.
I do not think we've reached that yet.
I think that's fair, but
So it took me a bit to come to it, but yes, there it is.
do you think that there's ever a time when sex or gender is a legitimate reason to discriminate?
Yes. Well, not
Okay.
discriminate, not discriminate,
Well, discriminate just
differentiate.
means, oh, okay, well, discriminate is not, doesn't always have to be a pejorative or a
Well,
negative term. It could just
well,
mean
yeah,
that you're,
but I think when we say it in this context, it has that
okay,
meaning.
is there ever a reason to consider sex and gender when, say, you're hiring somebody?
If you are hiring a Navy SEAL and you've got a 110-pound woman, she's probably not going to make the cut.
Okay. I would say there's other times. So like, say you were at a women's shelter. You run a
Hmm.
women's shelter. I could see why you might not want to hire male staff.
I could see that too, but I don't
So
think
I
that makes
think
them
that,
unqualified for the role. I just I can see why you would not want to do that.
exactly. So I don't think that would be a good metric to use, because there are a lot of situations. We could probably sit here and just list off a bunch of situations where there'd be a lot of times where you would want to consider sex and gender when you're hiring a person for a job, or when you're considering who you want to let live in your guest house or rent your Airbnb. It's kind of a freedom of association thing. So unless you want to get rid of freedom of association or attempt to eliminate all human bias, which is impossible, again, you might want to like come up with a different metric. Maybe think about what that metric would be.
This one might, Big League Drew may settle this with, is a hot dog a type of sandwich? Speaking of sandwiches, Naziar says, whoever makes the best sandwich wins the debate. This one from Kristen F says, thank you for bringing Rachel. She is amazing.
No, a hot dog's not a sandwich, but cereal is soup. So there.
Wow.
I think a hot dog is definitely a sandwich. The
I don't care.
cylindrical shape in no way disqualifies a hot dog from being a sandwich. It's still meat with fixins between two buns.
This one from Kenny, I've never heard it put that way. This is it's insightful. Kenny 3 Stacks says, Mrs. Doubtfire, let's see, Luchador 1764 says physiognomy. Luchador says, begs the Lord every night to... Okay, that's what? Man, some of you guys are weird. Big League Drew says, PSA. That was like 4 in a row that were really weird. Big League Drew says, PSA, circumcision is wrong. This one from Basil Problem.
I've heard that a lot. Weirdly.
And says...
I'm not into it, honestly. I'm not a big... There's no Christian reason to do it. I'm not a big supporter of it. I'm not like hardcore about it either way, but I tend to lean against circumcision.
I think a lot of people outside of America, like our European listeners, don't know that in America, the norm is that you're circumcised. When I played college football and we had some of the foreign guys, like from Germany, and they were like, what, is everybody Jewish? What's going on? Because in the locker room, they could see everybody was circumcised. Just so you know, if you're in Europe, it's not. I'm not making that up. Everybody here is circumcised.
Nope.
Not everybody, but almost everybody. This one from Devilish Fish said, "Not it." Okay. Beautifully Berserk says, Amanda, if you grew your hair long, I think I would love it. It has such natural lift. Not that they don't love it already, but I think they mean they'd especially love it. Have you grown it long before?
Yeah, go look at Strange Mentality Paper, my channel. You can see videos from, so I cut it in January and it was down to like here-ish, but I have to do some breathing treatments and it kept getting caught in my oxygen mask and started hurting. So I got annoyed and cut it all off. But if you go back to when it was the longest, would probably be like 2022, 2023-ish. But yeah, I've had my hair down to like here before, like right there. And it's like ringlets. And today I'm in very, very tired mode.
I
actually woke up sick today. I'm actually at like half power, but as soon as I get going, even when I feel shitty, it just, I don't know. I find energy somehow.
Yeah,
I told James, I was like, I woke up sick, but we came and we got her done. So
we're going to jump into light speed here. Basil Problem says, Modern Day Debate is held captive by Andrew Wilson and his Crucible crew. They won't say anything opposing this. I have to be honest, Andrew actually treats me really well. So I have to say, some debaters are dicks, and Andrew's not. Andrew's actually treated us really well. So I'd just be a jerk to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to show you, screw Andrew. Because he's just treated us well. And like this one from Dissent and Resist says, repeal the 19th. Wow. Thoughts? Sarah Knight Jenkins. Okay, I'm glad. Amanda doesn't even take it serious anymore. Sarah Knight Jenkins says, Amanda, do you think if you accepted patriarchy and were accepted in our worldview without ridicule that you could be happy?
Probably. I think anybody who is are universally accepted and not ridiculed, and I don't know. It's more complicated than that. Me, the person that I am right now, no, because I wouldn't be happy being a patriarch. But if I was a different person, I would probably think differently.
This one from Shaw XD says, Amanda, if you were to accept that rights are social constructs simply enforced by directed might and men have higher capacity for quote unquote might, wouldn't you be forced to accept that feminism depends on patriarchal force?
If that was the case, yes.
That is the case. How is it not?
Well, by pure might, no.
But what does it always boil down to?
I don't know.
This
But
one from,
You just don't want to say it.
it does not always boil down to brute strength.
Okay,
Let's continue.
demonstrate it.
I don't want to.
this one
Can we move
from,
on?
we do have a poll in the live chat here at Modern Day Debate on which side, feminism or anti-feminism, was most persuasive. Check that poll out. If you haven't already, you can vote. That's in the live chat. And Uncurable says, if feminism means equality, should laws favor women where they are advantaged or be neutral, even if that removes those advantages?
That's a
be
great
objective.
question.
What was it, Amanda? Sorry.
They should be objective.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh boy, because that's a hell of a bullet to bite. So right now, women receive far more lenient sentences for the exact same crimes, even taking into account factors, than men do. And if you really wanted to prosecute women equally with men, you would have to start prosecuting. So when a woman starts dancing up on a guy in the club and rubbing her ass up on him and stuff like that, or comes up and, pinches his ass or rubs his shoulders, that's all going to be SA. And I think you're going to have a really hard time if you want to start, treating women like men when it comes to the criminal justice system. I'm kind of with you, though. I'm kind of with you, though.
I think it'd be a good thing. I think it'd be a good thing. I think females sexually assaulting men is bad.
This one from, we're going to keep powering through. We don't have too many more. Amanda, you're in Eastern time, or are you not in Eastern time?
No, I'm in Central time. I'm still tired. I've been going since 5:30.
Okay. Bigley Drew says, let's see your fingers. Are they black? I declare she's a witch. Is this something they actually did? I don't understand.
My fingers are pink. Sorry.
This one from Bless My Vibe Code says, Amanda, when you find true love and all that resentment and aggression you have towards men goes away, right now you're a victim of your own hatred towards us, men. It's self-destructive. It's similar to incels.
I don't hate men.
Okay. This one from Manny Fresh says the book, quote, A Brave New World, unquote.
Haven't read it.
Okay. His Grace Remains says, W. Rachel, justification, history, consistency. Amanda, I am not lazy. This one from Basil Problem says, I'll miss you. Wow, Basil's leaving. Bye-bye.
Oh, Basil Problem. You know what, though? I want to take Amanda. We live in the same city. I'm not going to say where, but we live in the same city. I would love to take Amanda through a day in my life and see how she feels about having to hack it on a day in Rachel's life and see if she thinks that I'm lazy after that.
I'm willing to do it. You can come to mine. You can get to work at 7:30 and leave at 6:30 and then go do more work at home.
Man,
I've had to do that.
If you guys really do that, seriously, that would be, I think, such a
I'll vlog it. I'll do it.
A viral piece of content. Like, you really should do it.
We're going to the gym. I'm just going to warn you. We're going to the gym and we're going to be fetching Andrew lots of things, and we're going to be cleaning up after Andrew all day, and we're going to be cleaning up after children all day, and then we're going to be writing books and doing all the administrative work around here for the business, and it's going to be a lot.
I've written books too,
Unfortunately, we don't
Rachel.
get to lay around and watch soap operas. That's what everybody thinks that stay-at-home moms do. But
I didn't think that, but okay.
This one from, do appreciate your question. Chaw XD says, Did we do? No, we didn't do this. Shaw XD says, Amanda, you can't just hide behind non-falsifiable obscurity. Attacking the entailments is not a straw man.
That's not what was happening, and I did give falsifiable evidence or falsifiable claims, and the GDP being one of them. Let's move on.
This one coming in
Okay.
from Zachary Galpy. Good to see you, Zachary. I recognize your name. Says, thank you, James, for the shout out of Maine First Project and to the Super Chatter. And folks, you can see them at the bottom right of your screen. They sponsor DebateCon 6. We are eternally grateful. Check out their link in the description box. Zachary was awesome. So yes, but yeah, Zachary was in the same room as both Rachel and Amanda because he was there
Yep.
during your guys's when you guys got to engage a bit during the Q&A. That's cool. And Shaw XD says, Amanda, we got that. Let's see. I need a container. Says, Rachel, thank you for supporting real women. Amanda, you are I'm not a fan. Let's see. I don't understand. Okay. Now, do you have guinea pigs? Did you mention having guinea pigs?
I do have guinea pigs.
Ah, because they say hi to your guinea pigs for me, though. So
Okay.
they like guinea pigs. The
I like guinea
Riot
pigs.
says, Amanda, without Googling, can you say the 3 laws of logic? I'm trying to figure out what kind of debater coach you really are.
A very, very tired one.
Okay,
I can't do it right now.
We're near the end.
I can do it.
Go ahead, please.
The law of identity, the law of excluded middle, and the law of non-contradiction. Well, am I having a brain lapse? Law of excluded middle, law of identity. Yeah. Did I get it right? Andrew, did I get it right? Tell me if I'm right. I can't hear him, so I know he's streaming this, so he'll tell me.
Yeah, it's the law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. Yeah, from Aristotle. Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Even on half
Rachel.
power, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
We're really, really close here. Bear with me.
Okay.
Torque Doctor and Cryptic both say not it. I don't understand this inside joke. In their shoes says, Rachel, please have mercy on Amanda. Wow. This was a great debate.
I did. I think I was pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Might as well end on this note. If you read this, Andrew's gay. Thank you for that. This is appreciate that. Amanda, I think we got it. So I'm just checking.
I want to say, if you go in that poll, you can see how many people were, quote, on Rachel's side. And I think it equals the amount of insults thrown against me, almost. I mean, how many questions directed against me did you have to just not have to read because they were awful?
I will concede, there were some, although there were also some for Rachel.
Okay.
Yeah. If you think the internet's nice to me,
I didn't say it was. I know it's not.
Yeah.
It's just in this particular environment, it seems that like it is ruled by a certain like faction that all kind of bands together.
But to be fair,
it's called the Crucible Crew, and we love the Crucible Crew.
But
they follow you.
A really small percent actually used, kind of the blood sport, like, jabs to the eye. Is actually a really small percent. It's just that they're so noticeable because, it's like a negative emotion you feel. And so it just seems like there are more of them because it's just more magnified by our brains. Is that you even had some positive ones in here, like say hi to your guinea pigs for me. So it's kind of positive. All right, but yeah, thank you folks for tuning in. I think that's it. I'm gonna just you got it. Check out our guest links in the description box. We do appreciate them, folks.
Real quick, James, which links did you provide for me?
I put both your book one and your atheism one. Daniel Lilleberg, my pleasure, says, Rachel, thank you for giving a divorced man like me hope that there are women like you out there. We need it.
I think that's Rachel's whole goal, and I think she achieves it well. Rachel, for what you do, I think you do it really well. I think you meet your goal. Here, I'm not as militant about my position as I think you are, and I think you do what you do very well.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm very militant about trying to restore families and keep families together. And all the hatred that I get from people online is worth it when I get, like, I get DMs of people saying, "Hey, I didn't abort my baby because of an argument that you made," or, I stayed together and worked on my marriage and now we're doing great and our family's still together because I read your book or something like that. I would do it a million times over, and people can call me whatever names they want and I'll still do it because that's really important to me.
Based. And last one, ITS Apologetics. Thank you, says a virtuous woman like Rachel who can find. Wow.
Oh, shucks, you guys, shucks. Making me blush.
Oh, that's right. The poll is here still in the live chat. I'm going to be back in about 10 seconds letting you know about upcoming debates, including that one with Rob Noor and Adam Kahn this Tuesday. So stick around. I'll be back in 10 seconds. I'm going to let our debaters go. Thank you very much, Amanda and Rachel. It's been a true pleasure. And folks, stick around. I'll be right back.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. See ya.
Amazing. Thank you guys for your support. I can't recommend enough. Go check out our guest links. Rachel and Amanda are linked in the description box. Now, I've got to tell you, we're excited about the future here at Modern Day Debate. You might be thinking, what are you talking about, James? As an example, this Tuesday, it's going to be a big debate. Adam Kahn from Jubilee's Surrounded series. So that's how you know. It's one thing if they're on Jubilee Surrounded like once. They might, that's when you're like, well, they might be good, right? You don't know for sure because you maybe get a taste of them. But when you both think like, oh yeah, they were quick on their feet, and then you also see them again on Jubilee, that's because Jubilee likes them, right? Like Jubilee wants to have the strong debaters back onto their surroundeds because they know that like, yes, that person has like the it factor. It's like on Modern Day Debate, I know who the people are where I'm like, yes, like if they show up, even sometimes where it's like, yeah, that person doesn't have a big audience. Like for example, like First Amender, not a huge audience, no shame in that. He's just starting, but he does get engagement. Is that Adam Kahn has been on Jubilee's Surrounded more than once because they're like, yeah, that guy, he's fast on his feet. He and Rob are going to collide this Tuesday on whether or not Trump was a better pick than Kamala. You don't want to miss it. You won't miss it because, hey, hit that subscribe button. You know you won't miss it. It's going to be a fun night, and it's also going to be, I think, the final debate that we have. Oh, no, we'll have one more or two besides that before AmFest next week. So I'm going to go to AmFest next week. You guys are probably familiar with what that is. That's Charlie Kirk's TPUSA, or I should say the late Charlie Kirk's conference. And we are hoping to collaborate with Uncensored America, my friend Sean, tremendous guy. And I've got to say, we haven't even talked since DebateCon. So, man, let me just share and say huge thank you to all of the debaters and staff from DebateCon 6. It was a huge success. I've got to tell you, it was a pleasure working with Andrew. He was very good to me personally. And I've got to say, so, we're grateful for Andrew Wilson. We're grateful for Rachel Wilson. We're grateful for the whole Crucible crew. There was so much positivity, just so much excitement and enthusiasm, the Crucible folks, and everyone else as well. So, for example, Amanda was there in attendance. Amanda was a debater tonight, but at DebateCon 6, that was the first time I'd ever met her. She was a ticket buyer. She went to go watch. And everybody was so positive. And I've got to say, all credit to the debaters and the staff. Like Bob, an amazing guy, 20 years military experience, over 20, lieutenant colonel in the Air Force before he retired. And very practical, very smart, he's just been a huge blessing since DebateCon 1. He's been there since DebateCon 1. And I'm so grateful that Bob did a fantastic job, and also Sean from Uncensored America, who I just mentioned, our tech guy, and Jeff, our other tech guy, they did a fantastic job. Who am I not thinking of? Mike Carmen. He was very clutch. Came in at the last minute and said, like, hey, I'm happy to help. Like, let me help. And he did help. So he was like running the slides and stuff for the speakers, among other things. But definitely things where we were like, yeah, we are understaffed for this. How did that happen? But the checkout was way smoother thanks to volunteers like Craig at Fight the Flat Earth, who debated Rachel. Their debate was phenomenal. If you haven't seen that, it's only, what is it, like 2 or 3 weeks old? Yeah, so it's like going on 3 weeks since the conference, and amazing. Since her video, Rachel and Craig's, was posted, it has 110,000 views, and it hasn't even been 3 weeks since it was uploaded. That's fantastic. It was like wildly popular. And the likes on that puppy, that one, actually, I think that debate had the highest likes ratio. So if you thought this debate with Rachel was amazing, then I got to tell you, that debate was amazing as well. But I got to tell you, we have this coming Wednesday, probably, it's like very, very close. It's like a guilty pleasure. A flat earth debate, okay? We haven't done it for a while. It's like a sick pleasure. It's like some sort of weird vice for us at Modern Day Debate. People like that topic. And so we're going to do it. Now, at AmFest, though, Uncensored America's Sean Semanko, he has invited us to collaborate. And he said, hey, we want to host this huge, and this is something that we're just thankful to be included, because it's so much easier when you're not the person setting up the event. It's Sean that's setting it up. And this is like tentative. So I don't want to say the names because we did post it for members the other day. By the way, I've got to say thank you for members. We're gonna do that in just a moment. But there may be a huge debate, or maybe even two, at AmFest that are in-person debates, live streamed for the whole public, live streamed for you. So we're very excited about that. Now, I got to tell you, I'm looking at these dark circles under my eyes. Can you notice them? Did you guys notice them before I had mentioned them? Be honest, because I'm looking at them right now. I'm like, oh, I look like I have gotten some bad sleep. I have got to be honest. I haven't gotten the greatest sleep lately, but you know what? I just have to say, DebateCon was amazing. Thank you guys for all of your support. Peaches 2023, I say there in the live chat, thanks for being a member. We're going to start saying thank you to members. Thank you guys for your support of the event. Beagly Drew, thank you for being a member as well. And thank you for being a member. Holy Hex, thank you guys for supporting DebateCon 6 as members, or just if you're watching the content. We appreciate you guys just watching it. It really does, it helps, for real. And Beautifully Berserk says, thanks for being so cool. Thanks for your kind words, brother. That means a lot. Thank you for being so cool. Is that, where was I in terms of, oh, yeah. It was a huge success, though. We're grateful. We are still, let's see, we're always looking at how can we do it better. And, thank you. Beautifully Berserk is a sister. Thank you, sister, for your kind words. It means more than you know. Is that we're always looking for, like, how can we do this better? Because I think we can do DebateCon better. As a couple of things that I'm just thinking out loud, if you guys want to hear the inner details. We have a Patreon meeting tomorrow. So if you're a member at the final word level, check out our memberships. I forgot to plug this, is that we do have memberships. Check out our channel memberships. Click the join button. We have cool perks that I'm going to actually show you right now. Because you might be thinking, like, what are these allegedly cool perks, James? Well, let me show you all of the memberships, and then we'll go through each one. So if you haven't become a member yet, I highly encourage you to check it out. Here's why. Is that you might be thinking, but what is it? What's in it for me, James? Why would I become a member? Thank you, OXFF, for being a channel member. I see there in the live chat. We're going to look at it right now. So you can see there are 3 levels of memberships at Modern Day Debate. There is $2.99 a month, the Spectator. Then if you want to be a little bit more involved, the Debater level at $4.99 a month. And then the Final Word membership is $14.99 a month. Now you're maybe like, oh, James, but what are the actual perks? Tell me more. Well, if you've got a member at at this Spectator level, which is $2.99 a month, just that a month. You can't find a cup of coffee that cheap anymore. I can't find that. So for less than a cup of coffee, it's like, meh, yeah. You get to use the loyalty badges, or you have the loyalty badges next to your name that have the Modern Day Debate abbreviation, and the custom emojis that you can use in the live chat to call your friends in live chat a soy boy. So for example, I am showing the emoji right now for soy boy. You can use that to call your friends in live chat a soy boy with the emoticon. Also, the members only polls, as well as photo and status updates. So for example, I just gave an update for the members only posts where it showed that debate that is like super close to being confirmed at MFest. And then also immunity from slow mode in the live chat when we use slow mode. In other words, you'll be able to just type away and submit as many messages as you want. Now, maybe you're like, I want more. Tell me more about the debater level. This is like our middle level, kind of the $4.99 in the middle kind of sweet spot. This is where it gets even juicier. You get members-only videos. For example, we have a debate library of over 350 debates, including people like Stefan Molyneux, Milo Yiannopoulos, Andrew Wilson against Alex Stein. That's an old school debate that we hosted between those two gentlemen. It's a really fun one. That was I think that was before either of them really exploded in popularity. If I remember right, I think even Alex Stein wasn't big yet. Because we started hosting Alex Stein when he had like 12,000 subscribers. And back then Modern Day Debate had 50,000. But we knew, we were like, hey, this guy's good. We're going to keep having him on. And then, both Andrew and Alex, just exploded beyond Modern Day Debate as they have had wildly successful careers in YouTube, and their debate is one of these members-only videos. Now, there are also member shout-outs. Big League Drew, I say there in the live chat, thank you for being a member, and early access to new videos. So whenever we do those outnumbered uploads, we always set those as members only for the first week, and then they go public, as well as members only live stream. So for example, giving updates about DebateCon, stuff like that. But you might be thinking, what else is there? Well, I'll show you right now. The night is young is the final word level. So it's amazing because your name appears on screen and the ticker at the bottom of the screen, but also you can share your thoughts at that monthly Modern Day Debate monthly Zoom meeting. Let me just double check that I did post that in the I'm going to put that in right now. Post. And not only that, but also watch the DebateCon 6 stage debates live. That's something that for our next conference, it'll include those stage debates that you can watch live. Now I've got to tell you, we are excited about the future. There is a lot. We're getting fired up again. Is Kristen F2077 says, I bet that meeting is super fun. I got to be honest. We do like a personal, hey, how's everybody doing? What's new? How you doing in life? And that's more personal and fun. And then I got to be honest. The truth is we're open to having people come in and change the topic. where it's like, so for example, we had a gentleman come in like I think a month or two ago, and he was like, well, I want to talk about this, and it was relevant to modern day debate. So we were like, yeah, like let's talk about it. And almost the entire meeting we talked about that. And that's cool. That's what we want it to be, where people can, if they have something on their mind, come in and say, hey, you know, I think modern day debate could benefit from doing this or no longer doing that. And we welcome that. Although most of the meetings are planning meetings. So by planning meetings, I mean like we're planning out our next conference. So if you're alluding to that being boring, then yes, you're right. But I don't think it's boring because I don't know. I love the conference planning. I love modern day debates events. They're the most fun thing. I love the remote debates, don't get me wrong, but the in-person debates, they are the most fun. And now here's, by the way, on another quick update, we will probably, this is like, it's almost booked, but we're still just kind of feeling it out a little bit, is we'll probably have a conference Saturday, January 24th and Sunday, January 25th in San Antonio. That's probably going to be DebateCon 7. So we are probably going to do a little bit more of these than usual. We used to do like twice a year. And now we're like, yeah, but let's test out. If we do these in different areas, maybe we can do them more. And that's something that we are testing that out. So we're excited about that. It's going to be fun. And let me think about this. The debates aren't booked yet, so I don't want to say like what is going to be what there, but it's going to be a big one. We're very excited about it. And again, that's January 24th and 25th in the San Antonio area. It's still technically not confirmed. We're still like threading the needle on final details. But I want to say thank you guys for being with us in the old live chat and at this debate. Thank you guys for your support. Thanks for your love. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. I'm going to end the poll, assuming we can get 5 more likes to get to 300 likes for this live stream. Then I will end the poll and you'll see the final results. Just 5 more people. You got to be out there. If you can get us over that 300 mark, I will send feet pics to everyone in the live chat. So, 2 incentives there for hitting the like button. So, I'm just waiting. I'm just going to keep refresh. There it is, 300. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your support. Thanks for hitting that like button. It means more than you know. And hold on, now the page, there it is. Okay, we're good. I'm going to drop the results of that poll and want to say thank you guys, though. We'll be back on Tuesday night and then Wednesday night. So, and then I desperately have to go to the bathroom. But, all right, you know what? I don't know what it is. Is it just me? But like when I'm on YouTube, it's usually at night. I just always have these like issues, but it's only from this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's only from this computer. And I think it's usually when I'm live streaming, which makes me think it's maybe like a, let me find this poll. Hey, the poll doesn't even show on my side. When I'm logged in on my phone. Hey, how come Big League Drew, when Big League Drew said feet pics incoming, I had to like approve it to be shown? Because like that's not, is YouTube really that conservative? That like feet pics is like controversial? Like it's not even a little bit funny. ITS Apologetics says, one day, James, I'll be on your debate platform. Bookmark this. Well, hey, shoot me an email at moderndaydebate@gmail.com. Because, hey, if you want to come on, that's a possibility. As we are looking for new debaters all the time. Oh, and then last, I'm going to put this link in the live chat. So and I'm going to pin it too. So pinning it is that this is our insiders list. So when we do have DebateCon 7, you'll be the first person to know about it. So we would send it to our email list before we get around to posting it on our social media. And not only that, but we will send a promo code for a discount in case you are able to make it to DebateCon 7 in San Antonio. likely in January. But like I said, we're still confirming that. So check out that Insiders list, sign up, and then we promise we will only sparingly use that. So we're not going to spam you to death with a bunch of emails. It's going to be like very selectively where we actually send an email out. Like I said, we'll be like, hey, like here's when the conference is. Here's a promo code for a discount because we appreciate you being on our members only list. But yes, thank you guys for your support. I always hate leaving. I always just kind of want to just hang out and chill. But I will let you go because I should rest, as we want to, like I said, we're going to get back to full speed setting up debates. You noticed probably that we had about 2 or 3 weeks where there were no debates, and now we are rocking and rolling live again, where we're going to be in the habit of about 1 to 2 a week on average, sometimes 3. But yes, thank you guys. Love you guys. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. We will see you at the next debate this Tuesday with Rob Noor and Adam Kahn.